Chapter 180. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online can be found here. Zhang Sai arrogantly went to the classroom where Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong were. Little Jing Kong was tired from waiting and had already fallen asleep in Xiao Liulong's arms. Zhang Sai stepped into the classroom and saw that the little criminal who had committed a serious crime was still in the mood to sleep. He suddenly became angry and was about to scold him. Xiao Lulang looked at him coldly. Zhang Sai swore that he had never seen such a terrifying look in his life. It was as if he was going to eat him alive. Zhang Sai's voice was immediately stuck in his throat. Xiao Lulang put little Jing Kong on two benches that were put together and covered him with his little cloak. Then, he stepped out of the classroom. He closed the classroom door. Zhang Sai suddenly came back to his senses and his hair stood on end. Xiao Lu, let's talk over there. Xiao Lulang interrupted him indifferently. Then, regardless of whether Zhang Sai was willing or not, he went to the classroom on the opposite side of the classroom. The elementary school was over and the classroom was empty. Xiao Lulang found a seat by the window where he could see little Jing Kong's movements. Little Jing Kong was sleeping soundly. The little eagle was nestled beside him obediently. The man and the eagle were sharing warmth from each other. Teacher Sun was afraid that the two would fight, so he followed them in. However, he didn't dare to interrupt. He just looked at Xiao Lulang and then at Zhang Sai. Zhang Sai came here with absolute confidence. He straightened his back and said, "Xiao Lulang, what do you have to say this time? This time, it won't be another nonsense story of two children bumping into each other, right? Last time, the two children didn't have eyes. What about this time? Who forced him to bring a bird of prey like Old Eagle to the Imperial College?" Xiao Lulang didn't answer Zhang Sai's question. Instead, he looked at him indifferently. "So, what do you plan to do? Are you abusing your position for personal gain again?" Zhang Sai was furious. "What are you talking about? In any case, I'm a minister of the Imperial College, and I'm also your teacher. I haven't even opened my mouth to reprimand you, but you're already so glib with your tongue. Humph, I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. The Imperial College can't afford to accept students like you." Teacher Sun's expression suddenly changed. Little Jing Kong was in the wrong this time. No matter how Qin Chuyu humiliated him, he didn't bring the bird of prey to the Imperial College. This behavior seriously violated the rules of the Imperial College. However, it was a bit far-fetched to say that he should be expelled because of this. And he was not the only one who was fired. What did Xiao Lulang do wrong? This wasn't the right way to teach a father and son. Xiao Lulang didn't show any fear because of Zhang Sai's words. He looked at him without blinking. Which rule of the Imperial College allows you to expel a student? In the 6 divisions of the Imperial College, only those who committed fraud in the imperial examinations or violated the law would be expelled. Students in elementary school couldn't be expelled. Only those in the gifted class who didn't pass the exam would be assigned to the ordinary class. Little Jing Kong's bird of prey came to the Imperial College. It was his first offense and didn't cause any harm. According to the rules of the Imperial College, he should be given a demerit and no more than that. Therefore, the method of expulsion was completely untenable. Zhang Sai knew that he would say this. He had already thought of a countermeasure on his way here. The rules of the Imperial College were for ordinary people, but was Qin Chuyu an ordinary person? He was a prince. Threatening a prince was a capital offense. Zhang Sai sneered. "Do you know who that child is? His identity will scare you to death. He's a prince from the palace. Now do you understand what kind of heinous crime your child committed? I'm helping you by kicking the two of you out. Otherwise, if the punishment is too light and the people in the palace aren't satisfied, you can only lose your heads." Xiao Lulang was from the countryside. Zhang Sai was sure that he hadn't seen the world and would be frightened by his words. Xiao Lulang sneered in disdain. "Fine, then go find the emperor." We'll see how the emperor decides this matter. Zhang Sai choked. What was wrong with this kid? He couldn't even scare him? Could he go find the emperor? It wasn't that the emperor didn't care about the seventh prince, but if he couldn't even solve such a small matter, how could the emperor rest assured and give him the imperial college? Zhang Sai said arrogantly, it's useless no matter what you say. I've already made up my mind. Today, the two of you must get out of the imperial college. He had already thought of a foolproof plan for his great task of being the chancellor. Did it matter if Xiao Lulang agreed or not? He had already written the expulsion document and stamped it with the official seal of the imperial college. All he needed was the signatures of the teachers in their classes. Zhang Sai took out a document from his sleeve and said, Teacher Sun, bring me a pen and ink pad. Teacher Sun hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, Yes. Teacher Sun left. Not long after, he had a set of ink and ink pad in his hands. Sign it and make your mark. Zhang Sai handed the expulsion document to him. This one was for little Jing Kong. Teacher Sun hesitated again. To be honest, he couldn't bear to part with it. Little Jing Kong was a little naughty this time, but most of the time, he was quite obedient. Moreover, his grades were the best, so he had a lot of potential in the future. Who didn't like a smart and quick-witted child who always got first place? But this time, it was the seventh prince he provoked. What a pity. Teacher Sun braced himself and signed it. Once he signed it, there was no room for negotiation. Xiao Lulang said indifferently, Teacher Sun, think carefully. You're helping the evildoer. You'd better not regret it. Teacher Sun was in a dilemma. Hurry up and write it. Zhang Sai urged. Teacher Sun gritted his teeth and wrote his name on the document. Just as he finished writing and was about to make his mark, Eunuch Su's sharp voice suddenly came from the door. Oh, Marquis! You're finally here. Marquis. Zhang Sai's eyebrows twitched. Could it be Marquis Xian Ping? Did he come to the Imperial College in person? Zhang Sai quickly adjusted his official hat and straightened his clothes. He walked out of the classroom and came to the corridor. He bowed respectfully and said, This humble subject greets Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping didn't even look at him and asked Eunuch Su, Where's little Qi? Eunuch Su hurriedly pointed to a classroom and said, He's inside, eating snacks. He could even eat snacks. It seemed that he was fine. Marquis Xian Ping stepped forward. Zhang Sai squeezed his head and said, Marquis, I have already dealt with the culprits who hurt the seventh prince. This is their expulsion document. I have already signed one of them and I will immediately take care of the other one. Marquis Xian Ping frowned and said, Didn't you say there was only one child? Zhang Sai wanted to take credit and said, His brother-in-law is also studying at the Imperial College. He inverts right and wrong and is unreasonable. Such a character is not worthy of praise. I expelled him as well. Our Imperial College is based on educating people. We will definitely not accept students with bad character. Marquis Xian Ping faintly nodded and didn't care too much about this flattery. He and Eunuch Su went to Qin Chuyu's classroom together. Qin Chuyu was crying. It wasn't easy for Eunuch Su to coax him with a piece of sheep's milk cake. He was now eating happily. When he saw Marquis Xian Ping, his little fatty trembled and the sheep's milk cake in his hand almost fell out of shock. Marquis Xian Ping looked at him and narrowed his eyes slightly. This is what you meant by something big happened? From head to toe, not a single strand of hair was missing. The two palace maids bowed to him. There were two people Qin Chuyu was most afraid of. One was his father, the emperor, and the other was his uncle, Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping had never been fierce to him, but for some reason, he was afraid when he saw him. He didn't even dare to eat the sheep's milk cake. He threw it to the palace maid beside him and stood up straight. He called out politely, Uncle. Marquis Xian Ping looked at him with disdain. I heard you peed your pants? Qin Chuyu lowered his head with a red face. I changed it. Eunuch Su hurriedly tried to smooth things over. He smiled and said, Your Highness is still young. That child released an eagle to peck your highness. Marquis Xian Ping scolded. An eagle scared you to this extent. Shame on you. Qin Chuyu's little fatty body trembled. Eunuch Su also stopped talking. Marquis Xian Ping turned around and walked out of the classroom. He looked back at him and said, "Why aren't you leaving?" Qin Chuyu walked out unwillingly. Marquis Xian Ping walked slowly. His eyes were red as he said in a deep voice, "Are you feeling wronged?" Qin Chuyu's nose twitched and tears fell down. "You didn't help me when I was bullied. Are you still my uncle or not? I almost became Eunuch 7 today." Marquis Xian Ping said coldly, "You still have the face to say that? Don't you know how to bully others back? Why did the Empress give birth to a coward like you?" Marquis Xian Ping grew up in a military camp. He didn't study much and spent all his time with a group of rough men. He was an elegant and refined person when he didn't speak, but when he spoke, it was hard to listen to him. Qin Chuyu was called a coward and felt even more wronged. He began to cry loudly. Marquis Xian Ping was speechless. F***ck. He hated children the most when they cried. Eunuch Su was so scared that he immediately squatted down and comforted him. Qin Chuyu cried even harder. "I don't want my uncle anymore. I want my mother." Sob, sob. "I want my mother." Marquis Xian Ping's head hurt. "Chong Jing!" he shouted. Chong Jing descended from the sky and grabbed the little fatty, Qin Chuyu, and ran out of the Imperial College. Marquis Xian Ping also planned to leave. However, when he passed by the classroom that Xiao Lulang was in, he suddenly frowned. Zhang Sai, on the other hand, came over with 2 signed expelling documents. Panting, he said, "Master Ho Yu." After he finished speaking, Marquis Xian Ping turned around and pushed open the classroom door. The classroom was empty. There was no one in it. The window on the other side was wide open. Outside the window was the dean's courtyard filled with green bamboos. "Marquis, are you looking for that kid? That's strange. He was here just now. Where did he go? Why did he run away so quickly?" Zhang Sai murmured in confusion. Marquis Xian Ping frowned. He closed the classroom door and walked away with a cold expression. "Marquis, do you still want to look at the expelling documents?" "Marquis, Marquis." Zhang Sai's voice and Marquis Xian Ping's footsteps gradually faded away. After making sure that they were gone, Xiao Lulang walked out from behind a few green bamboos. The windowsill wasn't high. Although it wasn't easy to walk, he could still climb in. He walked towards the door with the help of his cane. He had just opened the classroom door when he saw Marquis Xian Ping blocking the door. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/114132570. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 181. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. Xiao Lulang looked at Marquis Xian Ping, and Marquis Xian Ping also looked at Xiao Lulang. Shock flashed through the eyes of the two of them. Xiao Lulang didn't expect him to turn back and wait for him here. Marquis Xian Ping didn't expect that the person he was waiting for would be the youth in front of him. He just had the same feeling as when he was at the relay station. The difference was that this time it was stronger. He was sure that the other person was hiding nearby. He deliberately walked far away to make the other person lower his guard, and then quietly turned back. It was a common move on the battlefield. He knew martial arts, so it wasn't difficult to execute. What was difficult was now. He looked at that face, and the disbelief in his eyes couldn't be hidden. "Marquis, Lord Marquis, you left too quickly." Steward Lu hurried over only when the daylily was about to turn cold. Where's the seventh prince? Isn't he with you?" He took a different path and missed Eunuch Su's group. After he finished speaking, he found that his marquis didn't respond. It was as if someone had cast a spell on him, standing motionless at the door of the classroom, looking inside. He walked over strangely and also looked inside the classroom. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he looked, he was shocked. His eyes widened. "Young master?" Zhang Sai had just chased after Marquis Xianping, but Marquis Xianping quickly turned back. He was so fast that Zhang Sai almost couldn't catch up. He was a bit confused by this young master. What's the situation? Not only did Marquis Xianping come, but his young master also came? And he even entered their classroom? Marquis Xianping looked at Steward Lu. "What did you call him?" Steward Lu said, "Young master." "Which young master?" Marquis Xianping asked Steward Lu, but his gaze fell on Xiao Liulong's face. Xiao Liulong's expression was very calm. Steward Lu said, "It's the young master that this servant told you about. He's Lady Yun's son." Xiao Liulong's mother's surname was Chen Yun's mother. Everyone in the neighborhood called her Lady 13. "Really? It's him?" Marquis Xianping stared at Xiao Lulang without blinking. His eyes looked calm, but there were endless undercurrents. Suddenly, he took out a warm hand and touched Xiao Liulong's face. His thumb vigorously rubbed the area under Xiao Liulong's right eye, but even after rubbing for a long time, nothing came out. His aura began to turn violent. "Where's your mole? Where did this mole go?" Steward Lu was confused. "What mole? Has the Marquis seen this son of his?" Before Xiao Lulang was born, the Marquis left Lady Yun and returned to the capital. In the winter 4 years ago, Xiao Lulang came to the capital with his brother. Unfortunately, they didn't see the Marquis. So why did the Marquis have such a reaction? Xiao Lulang didn't move. He let Marquis Xianping rub the cheek under his right eye until it was red and swollen. Finally, he looked at Marquis Xianping coldly, as if there was a trace of anger that he didn't know how to vent. "You've got the wrong person," he said calmly and coldly. "I've never had a mole here." Marquis Xianping put down his hand and coldly clenched his fist. "Excuse me." Xiao Lulang didn't pay any more attention to him and walked past him with his walking stick. Marquis Xianping looked at his limping figure, and there was a storm in his eyes again. Xiao Lulang went to the classroom opposite, put the baby eagle into little Jing Kong's bag, hung it on his arm, and picked up little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong was in a daze. He struggled to open his eyes and saw that it was Xiao Lulang. He drooped his head on Xiao Liulong's shoulder and fell asleep peacefully. A child who didn't take a nap couldn't be hurt. Xiao Lulang held him with one hand and held his crutch with the other hand. Under Marquis Xianping's complicated gaze, he walked out of the Imperial College. "It's him. It's them." Zhang Sai wanted to complain about Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong, but when he opened his mouth, he felt that the atmosphere was not right. Marquis Xianping's aura was too scary, as if he was going to kill someone at any time. He quickly shut his mouth. After Xiao Liulong's figure completely disappeared, Marquis Xianping also left the Imperial College. Zhang Sai looked into the classroom strangely. There's no one. Who was Marquis Xianping's subordinate calling young master? Teacher Sun, who had been waiting in the corridor and was lucky enough to witness the whole process, said in a cold sweat, It seems to be the supervisor of the capricious hall." Zhang Sai sneered. "You mean Xiao Lulang? Ha, come on. How can he be the young master of Marquis Xianping's mansion? His age doesn't match. The only match was Little Marquis, but Little Marquis is dead." He can't be Marquis Xian Ping's illegitimate son, right? Ha 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 ha. Zhang Sai stopped smiling and fainted. Marquis Xian Ping left the Imperial College and got into the carriage. Chong Jing held Qin Chuyu, who was frightened by Marquis Xian Ping, and asked, "Marquis, what should we do with him?" Marquis Xian Ping's mind was in a mess. Send him back to the palace. Chong Jing thought for a moment. Okay. Marquis Xian Ping didn't say how to send him back, so Chong Jing held Qin Chuyu and started another round of Xian Ping. Qin Chuyu couldn't even cry. Uncle's punishment was too terrible. He would never get into trouble again. After Marquis Xian Ping got into the carriage, he couldn't calm down for a long time. His eyes were cold and his fingers were trembling. What happened? He asked Steward Lu. Steward Lu lifted the curtain and got into the carriage, saying embarrassedly, "Marquis, what do you want to know? Is he Yun's son?" "Yes." "How did you find him? Tell me in detail." "Yes." Steward Lu recounted his experience of searching for Xiao Lu Lang in full detail. "The earliest I'll have to start from 4 years ago. Xiao Lu Lang and his brother came to the capital to meet Marquis Xian Ping. At first, he didn't say who he was. He only said that he was an old friend of Marquis Xian Ping and had something to give to Marquis Xian Ping. There were too many people like this. Xiao Lu Lang was dressed shabbily and didn't look like a noble, so the gatekeeper didn't take it seriously. Coincidentally, there were several murders in the capital during that time. The Ministry of Justice and the Supreme Court couldn't solve the case together, so His Majesty handed the case to Marquis Xian Ping. Marquis Xian Ping was very busy. After he solved the case with great difficulty, something happened to the young Marquis. In short, when Marquis Xian Ping received the news, Xiao Lu Lang had already left the capital. Marquis Xian Ping said in a deep voice, "This Marquis knows. This Marquis is the one who told you. This Marquis is asking about how you went to the county to find him." Steward Lu was transferred back in the last 2 years. Steward Lu said, "I went to the county first and found out that he was a student of Qianxiong Academy. So I went to the academy to find him, but he didn't admit it. I didn't give up. After that, I thought of another way. I used both soft and hard methods, but this young master is worthy of being Marquis's son. His bones are really hard. Of course, it's true that he studied well. He became the top scorer in Yuzhou and was recommended to enter the Imperial College." Marquis Xian Ping's eyes were filled with countless storms. What happened to his leg? Steward Lu said, "I asked around. I heard that it was more than a year ago. He was injured while saving a classmate. After that, he became a cripple." Marquis Xian Ping asked, "Was it not cured?" Steward Lu said, "It was cured, but I don't know why it didn't get better." After returning to the mansion, Marquis Xian Ping went into the study and took out a portrait from a secret drawer. The portrait was of a young boy of 13 or 14 years old. He was as gentle as jade and had an outstanding appearance. There was a mole under his right eye. If he survived and grew to 18 years old, Xiao Liulong's face flashed in Marquis Xian Ping's mind. Little Jing Kong slept all the way and woke up when he got home. He was the lively little trumpet spirit again. The first thing he did was to find little Jiu. Seeing little Jiu in the birdcage, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Don't be happy too early," Xiao Lulang said behind him. "Do you want to confess or do you want me to tell Jiao Jiao?" Little Jing Kong became listless in an instant. In the end, little Jing Kong chose to confess. Jiao Jiao said that if he confessed, he would be lenient, but if he resisted, he would be strict. As soon as Gu Jiao came back, little Jing Kong took the initiative to tell her about how he brought his baby eagle to the Imperial College to compete with his classmate. His classmate was so scared that he peed in his pants. Gu Jiao didn't blame him immediately. Instead, she asked him why he did that. Little Jing Kong was very sad, because they always laugh at me for being small, for not growing up, and for being a baby. He wasn't as tall as them, but his bird must be the biggest. He often walked the chickens in the alley. Of course, now he also walked the dogs and the baby eagles. He had seen many grandpas who walked their birds. Their birds weren't even as big as his little Joe. It turned out that he did it for the bird competition. He didn't mean to scare his classmate. But why did he pee in his pants? Little Jing Kong was puzzled. Following the adult's confusing behavior, there was another child's confusing behavior in Little Clear Sky's knowledge blind spot. Gu Jiao almost choked. Even a 1.5-year-old Go Hua knew this. Little Jing Kong grew up in the mountains, so he had never heard of such a down-to-earth term. Gu Jiao didn't explain this term to him in the end. She touched his little head and said, "How are the results of those who laugh at you? Can they get an A grade every time?" Little Jing Kong curled his lips and said proudly, "Of course not. They always make mistakes. I'm the only one who gets everything right." Gu Jiao said softly, "Isn't that right? They can make mistakes when answering questions, so what they say might not be right. They said that you won't grow tall, but they were wrong. You're still young now. When you grow up, you'll definitely grow tall, taller than them." Little Jing Kong thought about it seriously and was successfully convinced by Gu Jiao. If he could study so well, there was no reason that he couldn't grow tall. Little Jing Kong regained his confidence in life. He was a little Jing Kong full of fighting spirit again. Gu Jiao said again, "Did you do anything wrong?" "Yes," Little Jing Kong said honestly. "I shouldn't have brought Little Nine to the Imperial College. I won't do it again." Gu Jiao nodded with relief. "Go ahead." "Okay." Little Jing Kong turned around and left with the baby eagle in his arms. As soon as he entered the hall, he poked his head out again. But why did he take off his pants? Gu Jiao was speechless. The old chancellor went out. Gu Jiao made dinner. Xiao Lulang came in to add firewood as usual. Gu Jiao felt that something was wrong with him. Gu Jiao made his favorite crispy meat recently, but he ate half a bowl of rice less than usual. After dinner, he checked Little Jing Kong's homework as usual. Little Jing Kong went to check his two brothers' homework. He went back to his room to study, but he didn't open his book for a long time. Gu Jiao knocked on the door. "It's me." The door was ajar. Xiao Lulang paused, turned the book upside down on the table, and said to the door, "Come in." Gu Jiao pushed the door open and came in with a bowl of lotus seed soup. She put it on the table. "I just made it. Try it while it's still hot." Xiao Lulang looked at her little hands that shouldn't have suffered so much. He sighed. "Why did you make food again?" "You didn't eat much for dinner," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang looked down. Gu Jiao sat down on the chair opposite him. The dim candlelight fell on his jade-like handsome face. His eyelashes were long and slender, casting a trembling shadow on both sides of his nose. Gu Jiao looked at him with her chin in her hands. "Aren't you going to eat?" Xiao Lulang didn't have an appetite, but he still picked up the spoon and tasted it. It was very sweet. Even his heart didn't seem to be so bitter. Xiao Lulang slowly finished the bowl of lotus seed soup and looked up at her. She was also looking at him. She was above board. She didn't seem embarrassed when he caught her. Her eyes seemed to have stars, shining brightly. Xiao Liulong's heart seemed to be slowly filled with something, and the unpleasant emotions were forcefully squeezed out. He took the lead to look away, cleared his throat, and said, "I'll go wash the dishes." "No, I'll do it." Gu Jiao stood up and took the bowl before him. "You should prepare for the spring examination. I still want to be a tribute scholar's wife." "Oh." Xiao Lulang was disappointed. Just a tribute scholar's wife? Above the tribute scholar, there was the Jinshe, and after the Jinshe, there was still the Zhuangyuan, Tanhua, and Tanhua. But that title, Lulang, Tsundra said, "And you're calling me a wife, Gu Jiao, are you calling me?" Did he say it aloud? Xiao Lulang was flustered. "No, Gu Jiao looked back and smiled. "Hey." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/114104477. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 182. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were free to read. All the novels that could not be found online were available here. Xiao Lulang wished he could find a hole to hide in. Gu Jiao left in a good mood and hummed a tune while washing the dishes. The next day, Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong went to the Imperial College. Gu Xiaoshun ate quickly while Gu Yen ate very little. They had already taken their school bags and left. Xiao Lulang didn't take the expulsion document written by Zhang Sai to heart at all. He was too familiar with the rules of the directorate. Zhang Sai's method could fool others, but not him. A real expulsion document must have the chancellor's signature and seal. It was worth mentioning that after Zhang Sai bullied students and bribed the account books, his chancellor's signature was taken away by the emperor. Zhang Sai's real plan was to scare Xiao Lulang and let Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong leave on their own. Then, he would report that they had voluntarily withdrawn from school. Xiao Lulang sent little Jing Kong to the door of the elementary school. "Don't cause any more trouble today." Little Jing Kong rolled his eyes. "Then can I do it tomorrow?" Xiao Lulang. The older he got, the more troublesome he became, right? "Go to class," Xiao Lulang said sternly. "Oh." Little Jing Kong hugged his bag of books and walked away slowly. "Wait." Xiao Lulang stopped him. "Hand over the stone in your pocket." Little Jing Kong said seriously, "Little stone said it wants to go to class today." Xiao Lulang was expressionless. "Do you want to use the slingshot too?" Little Jing Kong choked. "How did you know I brought the slingshot? I hid it so well." Xiao Lulang. If you can fool me once, do you think I'll let you fool me again?" In the end, little Jing Kong's equipment was successfully taken away by Xiao Lulang. Little Jing Kong carried his school bag and walked forward with his head drooping. He sighed as he walked. Sigh. It was quite difficult. Xiao Lulang looked at the slingshot in his hand, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The older this little guy got, the more crafty ideas he had. First, he was angered by His Majesty, this big scumbag. Then, he was scared by Marquis Xian Ping, this big killing god. Zheng Sai was really sick. For at least a month, he would not be able to come out and cause trouble. There was less snow in the first month than in the 12th month, but the weather had not completely warmed up. Yao Shi sat in a warm room to make clothes for Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao had grown taller again. Who knew if it was because she had been malnourished in the past, but she had only begun to grow properly now. Yao Shi did not like to make clothes that were too big for her daughter. She would only make clothes that were just right for her daughter. This way, the clothes would not be able to be worn in a month or two. Where did the gold thread that old madam sent over go? Yao Shi asked Nanny Fong. Recently, Yao Shi had been very popular in front of old Madame Gu, and old Madame Gu gave her a lot of good things. Old Madame Gu did this not because she liked Yao Shi, but because she enjoyed the way Yao Shi served her obediently. Yao Shi's massage skills were really good, and the snacks she made were delicious. I remember putting it in the basket. Nanny Fong looked in the embroidery basket. Yao Shi said, "If you can't find it, then use the silver thread first. I will embroider the cloud pattern first." She was old, and her memory was not very good. Recently, Nanny Fong had been a little forgetful. Nanny Fong handed the silver thread to Yao Shi. Yao Shi threaded the needle and was about to insert the needle when the young maidservant outside the door opened the curtain. "Madam, old madam wants you to go to Pine Crane Courtyard." Yao Shi put down the needle and thread in her hand. "I know. Go and tell her that I will be there immediately." "Yes." The young maidservant left. Nanny Fong felt sorry for her. "You just came from Pine Crane Courtyard. It's too tiring." Yao Shi smiled faintly. "What's so tiring about it?" "I am just being a filial daughter-in-law in front of her." "Which daughter-in-law doesn't do this?" "Speaking of tiring, how can it be as tiring as Jiao Jiao?" Nanny Fong was powerless to refute. Eldest Miss had indeed suffered. In the early years, she had a mental illness and was bullied by the bastard Gu family in her hometown. Later on, although her mental illness was cured, her husband had to study. Now, all four of them were studying. She didn't take a single copper coin from the Marquis's estate. Everything was earned by herself. "All right, let's go to Pine Crane Courtyard. Don't let old madam wait for too long." Yao Shi tidied up the clothes she had made for her daughter, put on a cloak, and went to Pine Crane Courtyard. When she arrived at Pine Crane Courtyard, she found that Concubine Ling was also there. Concubine Ling's complexion was not very good. "Mother." Yao Shi bowed to old Madame Gu. Concubine Ling stood up with a smile and bowed to Yao Shi. "Madam." Yao Shi nodded. Seeing that Yao Shi was giving Concubine Ling face, old Madame Gu was very pleased and had someone serve Yao Shi tea. Yao Shi sat down and a servant served hot tea. Yao Shi took a sip and asked old Madame Gu, "Mother, why did you call me over?" Old Madame Gu looked at Concubine Ling. Concubine Ling smiled and said, "Actually, I am looking for Madam. I have something to ask of you." Yao Shi looked at her suspiciously. "What is it?" Concubine Ling pinched her handkerchief and covered her mouth and nose as she coughed a few times, panting, "Isn't it the first month of the lunar month? The day after tomorrow is the death anniversary of the late Madam. Originally, I was in charge of this, but I caught a cold a few days ago and it hasn't improved. It's fine if I am sick, but I am afraid that I will ruin the late Madam's memorial." Yao Shi said, "So you want me to go?" Concubine Ling coughed a few times and said, "Madam was good friends with sister before she married into the manor. I think that if I let you do it, sister will not blame you in the underworld." Yao Shi almost laughed. Did Concubine Ling not know what kind of reputation she had been carrying all these years? The late Madam probably thought that she was the one who caused her death, right? If she went to pay respects to the late Madam, wasn't she afraid that the late Madam's coffin would suddenly flip over? Old Madam actually agreed. She really didn't know what she was thinking. Concubine Ling said with a surprised expression, "Madam, don't tell me that you are unwilling to pay respects to sister?" Yao Shi said, "How can that be? I am just worried that the late Madam doesn't want to see me. The three young masters must have gone to her grave to complain about my vicious stepmother, right? She must be very angry with me. I am afraid that if I go, she will not be able to rest in peace in the underworld." Old Madame Gu frowned. Concubine Ling looked at old Madame Gu and said to Yao Shi with a smile, "It is precisely because of the misunderstanding that Madam wants to go to sister's grave to explain it clearly to sister." She said it as if the late Madam could really hear her. Old Madame Gu did not say a word of disapproval from the beginning to the end. It seemed that Concubine Ling had already convinced her first. There was no point in her persisting. Yao Shi leaned slightly to the side in her chair and bowed to old Madame Gu. "If mother does not object, then daughter-in-law will agree to this matter. However, this is the first time daughter-in-law pays respects to the late Madam, and there is only a day and a half left to prepare. Daughter-in-law is worried that there will be mistakes. Mother, please ask Concubine Ling to guide me more." She was so humble that old Madame Gu felt very comfortable listening to her. Moreover, this daughter-in-law was right. There were less than 2 days left. Old Madame Gu could not help but look at Concubine Ling. "You have been sick for more than a day or two. What were you doing so early? Shouldn't you have made preparations early?" Concubine Ling never expected that Yao Shi's light words would be able to deflect £1,000 with little effort. This caused old Madame Gu to be dissatisfied with her. If something really went wrong, it would not be good for Yao Shi to take the blame alone. But fortunately, Concubine Ling picked up the teacup, lowered her eyes, and took a sip of tea. Madam, why don't you come to my room? I will tell you about the worship in detail. Yao Shi stood up. Nanny Fong whispered, Madam, do you really dare to go? Yao Shi said in a low voice. She took me away from old Madam's eyes. If something really happens, it will all be her responsibility. Nanny Fong thought about it and agreed. Yao Shi went to Concubine Ling's place. Old Madame Gu was still worried. She was worried that Concubine Ling would be confused by her illness and not understand what she was saying, so she let her trusted nanny go with her. Old Madame Gu only hated Yao Shi and thought of ways to torture Yao Shi, but she would not secretly harm Yao Shi. Therefore, with her trusted nanny there, Yao Shi was not worried that Concubine Ling would play tricks. However, Yao Shi was still cautious. She did not believe that Concubine Ling would be so generous. Concubine Ling took out a box. This is the key to the storehouse. I have put the offerings inside. I have also prepared the carriage and manpower. Early in the morning the day after tomorrow, Madam can just go. Do the three of them agree? Yao Shi was referring to the three young masters of the Gu family. Concubine Ling smiled and nodded. They agree. I have already discussed it with them. This was even more strange. The three of them had always thought that she was the one who killed their mother and wanted to kill her. Why would they agree to her going to worship their mother? At night, she asked Nanny Fong to bring people to check all the things that Concubine Ling gave her. The offerings were not poisonous, the paper money was not tampered with, the wheels of the carriage were in good condition, and the coachman was an honest person in the residence. There was nothing wrong with everything. Was she thinking too much? Was Concubine Ling really so kind? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all the novels that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/114101192. HTML Genius memorized the address of this website. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 183. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. The Gu family's graveyard was located in a piece of land with good feng shui in the south of the capital. It was said that the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, the Gu clan's title of Marquis started from the old Marquis generation. After 3 generations, the Gu clan's title would be demoted. To put it simply, Gu Chongqing would be the last Marquis of the Marquis household. If he did not make a great contribution, then his son would become an earl, his grandson a viscount, his great-grandson a baron, and when it came to his great-grandson, he would become a commoner again. Of course, in Zhao country, There were also families like the Ding General Manor and the Zhuang family that had been prosperous for hundreds of years. Yao Shi had woken up very early. She wore a simple white skirt with cinnamon branches wrapped around her waist and an apricot-colored jacket. She did not wear any gold or silver ornaments, only 2 white jade hairpins. A young maidservant brought in a rouge box. Yao Shi waved her hand. There's no need for cosmetics. She was going to visit someone's grave, not to visit someone. Yes. The young maidservant resentfully took the rouge box and retreated. The sky is gloomy. I'm afraid it's going to snow again. Nanny Fong came in from the outside and rubbed her old hands that were stiff from the cold. Madam's clothes are too thin. Put on the cloak. Yao Shi nodded and put on a white satin cloak. It was impossible to pick out anything wrong with the way she was dressed. In the end, Nanny Fong was afraid that she would catch a cold, so she had the servants prepare a few more hot water bowls and hand warmers for her. When Yao Shi arrived at the front gate with the rabbit fur and hand warmer, Gu Chongqing and his 2 brothers had also arrived from their own courtyards. Gu Chongqing's expression did not change. However, Gu Chengfeng and Gu Qinglin's expressions did not look too good. Gu Chenglin coldly glanced at Yao Shi and harumphed, "Really, concubine mother, why did you let her come? Isn't it better for us to worship mother ourselves?" Gu Chongqing looked at him seriously. "Get in the car." Gu Chenglin said unhappily, "I didn't say anything wrong. She was the one who killed her mother. She still has the face to visit her mother's grave." Gu Chenglin thought so too, but his elder brother was here. He didn't want his younger brother to be punished by his elder brother again. Gu Chengfeng tugged at his younger brother's sleeve. "All right, let's get on the carriage first. If we get there late and it snows, it won't be easy to travel." Gu Chenglin angrily glared at Yao Shi and angrily got into the carriage. Gu Chengfeng got into the same carriage as him. Gu Chongqing rode his horse. Madame Yao and senior servant Fong sat in another carriage, and there were 2 other carriages pulling the offerings for Madame Ling. Why suffer such grievances? Nanny Fong's heart ached as she helped Yao Shi sit down on a stool. "It's nothing," Yao Shi said. She had long since gotten used to these words. At first, she would feel hurt and aggrieved, but now, she was already numb to it. She wasn't the one who killed the late madam. She knew that she was innocent. More than 2 hours later, the group arrived at Eastern Moon Village. The graveyard was in a forest behind the village. Gu Chongqing and the other 2 got out of the carriage. Madame Yao also got out of the carriage. She ordered people to bring down Madame Ling's offerings and planned to go to the grave to burn incense for her. Gu Chenglin stepped forward and blocked her path. "I won't allow you to pay respects to my mother. You don't deserve it." Madame Yao finally understood that concubine Ling called her over to use her stepson to humiliate her. Madame Yao calmly said, "I promised the old madam that I would burn incense for the late madam." "Go away." Gu Chenglin reached out to push Madame Yao, but Gu Chongqing strode over and grabbed his younger brother's wrist. "Do you want to cause trouble in front of mother's grave?" Gu Chenglin angrily withdrew his hand. Madame Yao handed the incense and paper money in her hand to Gu Chongqing. "Then I won't go. I'll have to trouble the air to convey my sincerity." Gu Chongqing took the things she handed over. "Madam, go to the carriage and wait. It's windy outside." Madame Yao looked at him strangely. He was actually concerned about her. Did he really become obedient in front of his mother's grave? Madame Yao didn't say anything and turned to get into the carriage. "I shouldn't have let her come," Gu Chenglin muttered. "Don't talk so much," Gu Chengfeng said. The Marquis's estate hired nearby villagers to guard the Gu family's ancestral grave. Every grave was cleaned very well. The 3 brothers paid respects to Madame Ling and their great-grandfather and great-grandmother. Then, they went to the village to take a look as usual. The Gu family's ancestors weren't from Dongyue village, but he had received the kindness of the local villagers. These years, the Gu family's ancestral grave had been well protected thanks to the villagers guarding it. Madame Yao brought the gifts in the carriage to the villagers one by one. In the past, it was concubine Ling who did this. The villagers all thought that concubine Ling was the true madam of the Gu family. When they saw Madame Yao, they asked her if she was a concubine of the Gu family, which made senior servant Fong angry. This was concubine Ling's second move. She was using the villagers' unintentional words to make her feel bad. Madame Yao wanted to laugh. In the end, concubine Ling had never been a mother. She didn't understand that for a mother, to be able to break the curse that her son wouldn't live past 15 and recognize her own flesh and blood, she had nothing else to ask for in this life. After visiting the villagers, it was a bit late. It was time for them to return home. Not long after they got on the carriage, it really started to snow. They hadn't eaten at noon, so they were hungry and cold. Madame Yao had a maidservant bring a box of pastries to the three brothers. Gu Chunglin sneered, "I don't eat the food she makes." Gu Chongqing frowned with a complicated expression. "Eldest brother, it's outside. Come sit in the carriage." Gu Chongfeng said to Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing lightly said, "No need." How could people who were on the battlefield care about a little bit of wind and snow? "Madam, they don't want to eat." The maidservant brought the pastries back. "Then forget it." Madame Yao took the box of pastries back. In reality, she didn't make them herself. She wasn't so kind as to make pastries for her stepson. She brought them from the manor. She ate 2 pieces herself. Recently, her appetite hadn't been very good, so she didn't eat much. She gave them all to senior servant Fong and the other maidservants. The snowy weather caused the carriage's journey to slow down. Unfortunately, there wasn't a decent restaurant in the wilderness, and Gu Changlin didn't fancy the food in the ordinary tea stalls. Thus, the 3 brothers starved all the way to the city. On the road back to the Marquis Fu, there was a stall that sold crispy duck. Gu Changlin usually liked to eat the duck from that stall. After being hungry for so long today, he couldn't bear it anymore and said to Gu Chongqing, "Eldest brother, I'm about to faint from hunger. Let's go in and eat something." Gu Chongqing looked at his 2 younger brothers who were starving and nodded. He rode his horse to Madame Yao's carriage and said, "Eat something before going back?" Madame Yao wasn't hungry, but she was tired after sitting in the carriage for a day. The group got off the carriage and asked for 2 rooms on the 2nd floor. The 3 brothers were in one room and Madame Yao was in the other. Madame Yao didn't eat anything and ordered a table of food for senior servant Fong and the accompanying servants. The room was very stuffy. She also wanted to go to the toilet, so she went to the guest room in the back of the 1st floor. When she came out and walked to the main hall, a man's voice suddenly called out to her, "Yao." Madame Yao hadn't heard this voice for many years, but she still recognized it immediately. Madame Yao's expression changed and she turned around in a daze. "Yao, it really is you." A man wearing a navy blue robe walked over with large strides. He was around 30 years old and had delicate features. He was handsome and spirited. His figure wasn't as tall as Marquis Gu, but he was still tall. Madame Yao regained her senses, but when the man came close to her, she still restrained herself and took a few steps back. The man's expression darkened and then he said with embarrassment, "I was rude. I haven't seen you in so many years. In a moment of excitement, I almost forgot my manners. Please forgive me." As he said this, he cupped his hands and bowed. Madame Yao dodged to the side and did not accept his greeting. "Don't be like this." The man looked at Madame Yao with a complicated gaze. "Yao, have you been well these years? I heard that you married into Marquis Ding and Manor. Has the Marquis treated you well?" Madame Yao lowered her eyes and said, "I have been very well." The man smiled as if a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. "If you say it like this, then I can be at ease." Following this, the 2 did not speak. The scene was very awkward. Madame Yao pinched her handkerchief and said, "I need to go." A trace of disappointment flashed through the man's eyes. "My mother often asks about you." Madame Yao's steps stopped. The man smiled bitterly and said, "In truth, I have also gotten married these years. I have my own wife and children. I'm sorry. Madame Yao closed her eyes and said, that year, it was the Yao family that first broke off the engagement. The one that should say sorry is me. You don't need to blame yourself. The man sadly said, my mother caught a cold before the end of the year. After that, she was not very well. Recently, she has been muddle-headed and has been calling out your name. The two families had been in contact for a long time. The marriage between Madame Yao and the man had been decided long ago. The man's mother was very satisfied with Madame Yao. Every day, she hoped that this daughter-in-law would marry into the family as soon as possible. She said that she would definitely treat her as her own daughter. Unfortunately, this marriage was ruined in the end. Rather than saying that it was Marquis Gu's bullying, it was better to say that it was the Yao family's attempt to curry favor. She had been angry, she had hated, and she had also been annoyed. Now, she had calmed down. You. The man awkwardly scratched his head, saying this might be too abrupt. I truly did not expect to meet you here. But since we have met, I still want to ask you. Can you go see my mother one last time? His mother was about to die. The doctor had said that it would happen in the next few days. But his mother had been unwilling to close her eyes the entire time. His mother was in pain. He was also in pain. He looked at Madame Yao and hesitated for a moment before saying, as her son, I have not given her a single day of glory and wealth. I don't want to be unable to satisfy even one of her wishes. After all, Madame Yao had been engaged to him. Logically speaking, they should avoid each other. However, his mother had indeed treated Madame Yao as her own. She was a very kind woman. Even now, Madame Yao could still feel the warmth in her heart when she thought about it. If she had married him back then, perhaps her days would have been very different. Where do you live? Madame Yao asked. The man's eyes lit up. Have you agreed? Madame Yao paused. I will consider it. I will not necessarily go. It's fine. It's fine if you can't go. I live on Clear Wind Street in Clear Moon District. The man reported his address. Madame Yao did not expect that he would live in such a poor place. I will be leaving first. Madame Yao said to him. Oh. You take care. The man emotionally sent Madame Yao off with his eyes. Madame Yao entered the main hall and went upstairs. On the other side, the three brothers of the Gu family had finished eating. The group sat in the carriage and returned to the estate. Madame Yao first went to report to old Madame Gu. Hearing that nothing had happened along the way, old Madame Gu was very gratified. Marquis Gu had Huang Zhong return to the estate to pass on a message to Madame Yao. The Ministry of Works and the Ministry of War had some conflict. Marquis Gu was currently handling urgent matters at the Ministry of Works and might not return tonight. He told his wife to rest first and not wait for him. Madame Yao was restless in her room. Whenever she closed her eyes, she would think of Madame Zhen, her former future mother-in-law. Granny Fong. Madam, what is it? Granny Fong opened the curtain and came in. Madame Yao put on an outer robe. Prepare the carriage. I am going out. It's so late. Where is Madam going? Eldest Miss and young master should be resting now. Granny Fong thought that Madame Yao was going to Jade Water Alley. Madame Yao said, Don't ask so much. Find a tight-lipped carriage driver. Granny Fong opened her mouth. Oh. Madame Yao rode the carriage to the Zhen estate. She knocked on the peeling door. Who is it? It was a woman's voice. Madame Yao didn't say anything. The door creaked open, and a woman wearing plain clothes walked out. She looked prematurely aged. The woman was about the same age as Madame Yao, but she looked more than 10 years older than Madame Yao. Madame Yao guessed her identity and opened her mouth. Just as she was about to say who she was, she heard the woman turn her head and say, Master, there is a guest. Zhen Ping quickly walked out. When he saw Madame Yao, he was surprised at first, but then he happily walked forward. It's cold outside. Quickly come in and warm yourself. Then he said to his madam, It's the Marchioness. The woman bowed to Madame Yao. Madame Yao slightly nodded. It was very clear that the woman had heard of Madame Yao. She tactfully carried the half-washed clothes from the front yard to the rear yard and didn't appear in front of Madame Yao again. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428266/1140756664. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 184. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Come in. Zhen Ping smiled and said, turning to the side to lead the way for Yao Shi. Yao Shi's carriage stopped at the entrance of the alley. She didn't even bring senior servant Fong. She stepped into the courtyard. If she didn't come, Zhen Ping would be nervous. If she really came, Zhen Ping would be even more nervous. The reason was that the courtyard was too simple and crude. Yao Shi's expression didn't change at all. If he knew that Yao Shi had been to a courtyard that was even simpler than this one, and that her daughter, son-in-law, and son had all lived there, he would understand why Yao Shi was so calm. Zhen Ping welcomed Yao Shi into the main room and said nervously and excitedly, "There's no hot tea. Wait a moment, I'll have you Xiu boil a pot." "She's called you Xiu?" Yao Shi looked at him and asked. Zhen Ping was stunned. He didn't mean to say his wife's name out loud. He felt that this wasn't very appropriate, but since he had already said it, he couldn't take it back. He braced himself and said, "Yes, you Xiu. She's not from the capital. She's from outside the capital to do business. She's a very good person," Yao Shi said. Zhen Ping didn't know how to respond to this. He stood there awkwardly for a moment before suddenly remembering the important matter. He said to Yao Shi, "My mother is in the room next door. I'll take you there. Our home is too simple and crude. I've neglected you. I didn't think that you would really come. I'm very happy that you came." Zhen Ping's words were incoherent. Yao Shi wanted to say that he didn't need to be nervous, but when the words reached her lips, she felt that she would be the same. Zhen Ping lifted the thick curtain and allowed Yao Shi to enter the room first. Yao Shi slightly bent her body and walked under the curtain that he had lifted. This was the first time the two of them were so close to each other after more than 10 years. The tip of Zhen Ping's nose was filled with her scent, but Zhen Ping did not allow himself to lose his composure. He tried his best to prop himself up high and not touch her. After Yao Shi entered the room, he also entered the room. The room was filled with the smell of medicine. She had suffered a stroke before the end of the year, so it was easy to smell after lying down for so long. However, this room didn't. It could be seen that the husband and wife took good care of her. Old Madame Jeanne was lying on the sickbed. Her hair was white and her face was pale. She looked haggard. Yao Shi's memory was pulled back to more than 10 years ago. Old Madame Jeanne had a very fierce personality. When she worked, she was stronger than a man. Who would have thought that there would be a day when she was lying on the sickbed like this? She moaned intermittently, as if she was enduring great pain. Yao Shi did not dare look a second time and quickly lowered her eyes. The tip of her nose began to sting. Zhen Ping came to the front of the bed, leaned over and gently touched his mother's forehead, saying, "Mother, look who's here." Old Madame Jeanne looked in the direction that Zhen Ping was pointing at. In the blink of an eye, her turbid eyes shone with surprise. Yao Yao She took a deep breath and held back her tears. With a normal expression, she walked over and said with a slight smile, "Elder Madam, it's me." Old Madame Jeanne reached out her hand, wanting to sit up and take a good look at Yao She. Yao She sat down on the side of the bed and moved closer to her, saying, "Don't get up. It's snowing today. It's very cold." "Yao still loves me dearly," old Madame Jeanne said with a hoarse voice. After the stroke, she could not speak clearly, but it was clear that she was very happy. Yao She married into the Marquis's household when she was 17. When she was 18, she only had Gu Jiao and Gu Yen. After 15 years, she was only 33. Time had treated her especially well. It did not leave many traces on her face, except that her eyes no longer had the innocence of a young girl. But this was not a problem for old Madame Jeanne. Old Madame Jeanne took Yao She's hand and was as happy as a child. "You and Ping are married?" Yao She was startled. She turned her head and looked at Zhan Ping in confusion. Zhan Ping whispered, "My mother is suffering from dementia. She can't remember many things clearly, or she can't remember them clearly." Yao She understood. It was indeed easy for people to be like this when they were old. Yao She looked at old Madame Jeanne's expectant eyes and nodded, "Yes, we are married." Zhen Ping's heart skipped a beat and his eyes turned red. Old Madame Jeanne smiled like a child. Old Madame Jeanne was not dissatisfied with her daughter-in-law Yu Xiu. Yu Xiu had been taking care of her husband and children, serving her parents-in-law all these years. She was a bit dull, but her conscience was unquestionable. It was just that old Madame Jeanne knew Yao She first. She did not think that her son's marriage with Yao She would change so drastically. She had long regarded Yao She as her daughter-in-law. One year, old Madame Jeanne fell down from the ladder and was seriously injured. Coincidentally, Zhan Ping was in the provincial examination. In order to not distract Zhen Ping, Yao She secretly came out of Yao She's house every day to take care of old Madame Jeanne. The two were not mother and daughter, but they were more like mother and daughter. Later, the Yao family came to cancel the marriage. Old Madame Jeanne was sadder than her son. This matter became her long-cherished wish. Usually, she did not mention it, but after her dementia, she could not help but ask about Yao all day. "Why did you not marry Yao? Then you can't call me old madam anymore. You should call me mother." Old Madame Jeanne said like a child with a serious face. Yao She nodded with sobs. "Yes, mother." Zhan Ping turned his back and used his sleeve to wipe his tears. "Ah." Old Madame Jeanne smiled happily. Yao She put her skinny old hand into the quilt. "Be careful not to catch a cold." "I'm not cold," old Madame Jeanne said with a smile. She thought of something and raised her right hand with difficulty to turn the pillow on the left side. "What do you want?" "I'll help you." Yao She stood up and said, "Box, there's a box under it." Old Madame Jeanne said with difficulty. It was a simple action, but it almost drained her of all her strength. Yao She leaned over and took out a small flat box from the left side of the pillow. This box was a bit old. It was carved with a pattern from more than 10 years ago. The paint on it had also faded. It could be seen that old Madame Jeanne often took it out to look at it. Old Madame Jeanne took the box. Her hands were trembling, but even so, she still insisted on opening it. Inside was a pair of gold bracelets. The quality was excellent. The style was very old. Old Madame Jeanne picked up the bracelets with trembling hands and pulled Yao She's hand. Because of her trembling hands, she did not put it on for a long time. Yao She saw that beads of sweat had appeared on her forehead. "Mother, let me do it," she said. "It's done." Old Madame Jeanne finally put the bracelets on Yao She. "I said that I'll give it to you when we get married. Our family is not well off, so you have to suffer." Zhan Ping failed the provincial examination and could not recover from the setback. He did not pass the examination for many years. Later, he thought it through and gave up the imperial examination. Old Madame Jeanne had prepared this set of head ornaments more than 10 years ago. She took all her dowry and melted it in the shop. A pair of gold bracelets was made. Yao She's name was engraved on it. Yao She. This pair of bracelets had been lying beside old Madame Jeanne's pillow for more than 10 years. Old Madame Jeanne would take it out and touch it when she was bored. Zhen Ping always knew that his mother had a very precious box, but he did not know that it was a wedding gift for Yao She. Of course, when Yu Xiu married into the family, old Madame Jeanne did not treat her badly. She lent money to buy a pair of gold head ornaments for Yu Xiu. But the meaning was different. Yao She had been holding back since she entered the room. But now, she could not hold back anymore. She hugged old Madame Jeanne's hand and tears fell down. Old Madame Jeanne was frightened. Yao She, why are you crying? Do you not like the bracelets? Mother will buy you a new one. Yao She shook her head with tears in her eyes. No. I like it very much. I really like it. Thank you, Mother. I am too happy. Old Madame Jeanne waved her hand. Ah, what is there to be happy about a pair of bracelets? When Ping passes the examination, I will let you be the wife of the examination and give you a lot of jewelry. Yao She chatted with old Madame Jeanne for a while. Old Madame Jeanne was sleepy. She held Yao She's hand and fell asleep. Yao She stayed in the room until old Madame Jeanne started snoring. Then, she gently took her hand out and tucked old Madame Jeanne in. Throughout the entire process, Zhen Ping, who was in the room, was neglected by his mother. Let's go out and talk. Yao She wiped her tears and said to Zhen Ping. Zhen Ping opened the curtain and let Yao She go out first. Then, he followed her out. The two came to the central room. There was hot tea in the central room, but no one was there. Yu Xiu must have made the tea and left after putting it down. Zhen Ping took a deep breath and said to Yao She, sit. Yao She shook her head. I have to go. I'll return this to you. As she spoke, she took off the bracelet on her hand. Zhen Ping hurriedly grabbed her hand. He wanted to stop her, but when he realized that his actions were inappropriate, he let go. Sorry. It's fine. Yao She shook her head slightly. She knew his character very well. He wasn't a frivolous person. Zhen Ping said, the bracelet is for you. Take it. My mother will only be at ease if you take it. Otherwise, if you return it to me and she finds it at home, she will be agitated again. Yao She thought about it and didn't insist. I'll send you off. Zhen Ping saw her intention to leave. No need. Yao She said. Zhen Ping smiled. No, that door bolt is broken. Even Yu Xiu can't open it. With your strength, you might not be able to open it either. Yao She didn't refuse. The two stepped into the corridor and went to the front yard. The residence was very quiet. Zhen Ping suddenly opened his mouth. Actually, I didn't expect that my mother always wanted me to take the imperial examinations. She told me in the past that I shouldn't force myself if I didn't want to. We don't have to study to live. I thought that she was sincere. Today, after hearing his mother's words, he knew that her long-cherished wish was not only not being able to marry Yao She as her daughter-in-law, but also not being able to see her son take the imperial examinations. He felt very guilty. Yao She asked, what did you do after you stopped studying? Zhen Ping smiled. I did everything. I went to a private school to be a teacher. I went to an inn to be an accountant. I also went to the docks to carry goods for people. Now, I'm making a small living selling tea. As he spoke, he scratched his head. Actually, life isn't as difficult as it seems. Business has been pretty good these past 2 years. I bought a residence on East Street and will be moving there next month. That's great. Yao She said. After that, there was another period of silence. Yao She opened her mouth. Back then, my eldest brother. Zhen Ping waved his hand and interrupted her with a smile. It's all in the past. Yao She said guiltily, I'm sorry. Zhen Ping was Zhen Ping's only son. It could be imagined just how much heartache she had experienced when Zhen Ping's engagement was cancelled by the Yao family and his legs were broken by Yao Yuan. But after she developed dementia, she forgot all of this. She forgave him. Yao She's throat swelled with pain again. We're here. Zhenping said. He glanced at Yao Shi. His eyes were also red. He quickly lowered his head. I'll open the door. The two did not say anything that they should not say. This might be the last time they would see each other. Some things that were missed were missed. There was no possibility of starting over. However, just as Zhenping was about to open the door, the sound of a carriage came from the door. Here. Right. It's here. I heard that man say it with my own mouth. It was Marquis Gu and Gu Chenglin. Yao Shi's expression changed. Although Zhenping did not recognize their voices, he inexplicably felt that they did not come with good intentions. His action of opening the door stopped and he turned around to look at Yao Shi. Yao Shi did not expect that her conversation with Zhenping in the restaurant would be heard by Gu Chenglin. And Gu Chenglin even brought Marquis Gu to catch her adultery. Yao Shi suddenly realized that things might not be so simple. She asked Zhenping in a low voice, "Why did you go to that restaurant today?" Zhenping said thoughtfully, "A customer asked me to go there to discuss business, but it was very strange. I went there and did not see him." Yao Shi said, "Is it a customer that you just met recently?" Zhenping said, "That's right. What about it? Could it be that there is a problem with that customer?" Now that things had developed to this point, if Yao Shi still could not guess that it was concubine Mother Ling's doing, then it would not make sense. "I don't have time to explain right now. Is there a back door?" she asked. She could not let Marquis Gu see her here. Marquis Gu would kill Zhenping. Zhenping said awkwardly, "There is, but there are piles of firewood. I need to move the firewood away before I can open the door." "Hey! Open the door. You inside, quickly open the door." Gu Chenglin began to slam the door. Huang Zhong kicked the door open. Yao Shi's expression changed. Just as she was about to find a room to hide, the door was kicked open with a bang. Digression. Do you have a monthly ticket? The kind that can summon miracles. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online will be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/114072401. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 185. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. Zhenping looked at the three people who had barged in with a panicked expression. He had never seen Marquis Gu before and Yao Shi did not have a chance to tell him. "Who are you?" he asked. Gu Chenglin ignored him and stepped in. He looked around. "Where is the person? Where did you hide the person?" Zhenping calmed himself down and looked at him. "Who is it? Who are you looking for?" Marquis Gu and Huang Zhong also walked in. Marquis Gu's gaze fell on Zhenping's face. His cold gaze revealed a trace of ill will. Of course he recognized the person in front of him. Although he had never seen him before, he had investigated him. When Gu Chenglin had told him that Yao Shi had met with a man in a restaurant and that man had invited Yao Shi to his address, he had instantly guessed that person's identity. In reality, Marquis Gu did not know that Yao Shi had an engagement. He never thought that the Yao family would be so shameless as to hide the fact that Yao Shi had an engagement with someone else and marry Yao Shi to him afterwards. He had accidentally heard concubine Mother Ling mention that little Ling Shi had told her that Yao Shi seemed to have been engaged to someone else. He did not know if this was true or false. Thus, He went to investigate and followed the vine to find the melon. A poor scholar who could not lift a hand or carry a shoulder. His family was not wealthy and his appearance was not as good as his. Marquis Gu felt that the other person was not a threat at all. In addition, Zhen Ping had already married someone else and did not have any private contact with Yao Shi, so he did not do anything to Zhen Ping. If it were not for today's matter, he would have already forgotten about Zhen Ping. "Has my wife, Yao Shi, ever come here?" he faintly asked. The words, wife, Yao Shi, caused Zhen Ping to freeze. He never would have thought that this tall and mighty man was Yao Yao's husband. Marquis Ding wore a black brocade robe and a silver fox cloak. His features were resolute and he was handsome. Although he had entered middle age, he was still tall and sturdy. His presence had not decreased. "Never," Zhen Ping said. "How could she not be here? I saw her leave with my own eyes." Gu Chunlin said domineeringly. Although Gu Chunlin did not resemble Marquis Gu as much as Gu Yan, it was not difficult to tell that he was Marquis Gu's son. When he mentioned Yao Shi, he did not call her mother or madam. Zhen Ping could guess what kind of life Yao Shi was living in the Marquis manor. Zhen Ping felt terrible in his heart, but he tried his best not to show it on his face. He said, "Could it be that the madam of your residence must come to my place when she goes out?" Gu Chunlin said disdainfully, "I saw the two of you talking in the restaurant this afternoon, and you even asked her to come to your house. Don't try to quibble, my two brothers and I heard it. The one blocking the back door should be the other young master of the Marquis estate." Since things had already reached this point, Zhen Ping's stomach was filled with bitterness, as well as a trace of anger. What kind of stepson would do such a thing, bringing his own father to catch his own stepmother's adultery? Zhen Ping clenched his fists and said, "That's right. I met the Marchioness by chance this afternoon and chatted with her for a bit. That's all, nothing else." Gu Chunlin, "You clearly asked her to come to your house to see your mother." Zhen Ping, "I did say that, but the Marchioness rejected me. She said that it was not suitable for us to have any more contact." Gu Chunlin, "How come I didn't hear that?" Zhen Ping, "That's not clear." Gu Chunlin still wanted to argue with him, but Huang Zhong had already looked around the residence. When he returned to the courtyard, he shook his head at Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu frowned and said to Zhen Ping, "I've disturbed you." Gu Chunlin, "Father, look again, I heard it with my own ears." Marquis Gu shot daggers at him, and Gu Chunlin resentfully shut his mouth. Marquis Gu said in a bad mood, "Why haven't you returned to the carriage yet?" "Oh." Gu Chunlin unwillingly returned to the carriage. He kept feeling that something was wrong. Yao Shi must have been hiding somewhere. He really did hear that man ask Yao Shi to come to his house to visit his mother. Yao Shi's appearance did not seem like she had firmly rejected him at all. Marquis Gu also planned to leave. Zhen Ping called out to him, "Marquis Gu, Madam and I no longer have any relationship. I hope that Marquis Gu will not misunderstand her." Marquis Gu coldly said, "This Marquis knows his own matters. There is no need for you to tell me what to do." Zhen Ping lowered his eyes. Marquis Gu flicked his sleeves and left the courtyard, getting into the carriage. Only after the carriage was far away did Zhen Ping dare to close the courtyard door. He turned around and looked at the boundless night sky. His eyes were filled with endless worry. Yao Shi was indeed not in the residence. Otherwise, with Huang Zhong's abilities, there was no way that he could not find her. Just now, when the door had been kicked open, a tall figure had descended from the sky, carrying Yao Shi and leaving by leaping onto the walls. Yao Shi had never experienced something like this before. She was like a kite flying through the cold wind. She did not know if it was because of the cold or because she was scared. When she finally landed on the ground, her legs were so weak that she almost collapsed. A large, strong hand supported her arm just in time. Yao Shi looked at the other person in shock. Her mouth gaped open in disbelief. Gu Chongqing's expression was as he said, "Quickly return to the residence. Father is about to return." The shock in Yao Shi's heart could not be any greater. She never expected that the person who took her away at such a critical moment would be her stepson Gu Chongqing. How did you, Madam. Madam. Nanny Fong ran over from the other end of the alley and bowed to Gu Chongqing. Then she said to Yao Shi, Madam, get in the carriage. Her carriage was originally parked near the Zhan residence, but now it was here. Yao Shi had many doubts in her heart, but Gu Chongqing did not say anything. He turned around and disappeared into the night. Yao Shi got into the carriage with the help of Nanny Fong. Nanny Fong handed her the water bag that had been kept warm under the hot water. It's hot. Madam, drink some hot tea to calm down. Yao Shi took the water bag, pulled out the cork, and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Finally, she felt her breathing return little by little. Nanny Fong, what's going on? Nanny Fong slapped her thigh and said, this servant also doesn't know. Just now, the carriage was parked over there. Suddenly, the heir came over and told this servant to come to this alley to pick you up. At that time, this servant thought, it's over, the heir found out. This servant didn't care too much and did as the heir said. Madam, where did you go just now? Why were you with the heir? Will the heir tell the Marquis and make him suspicious of you? Yao Shi was silent. So Gu Chongqing specially came to save her. He also heard her conversation with Zhen Ping and knew that if she went out, she must have gone to the Zhan residence. But, didn't he hate her the most? Why did he help her? Yao Shi was puzzled. Yao Shi did not immediately return to the estate. Instead, she went to Jade Water Alley. Marquis Gu waited for Yao Shi at the estate for a long time. When he did not see her return, he also went to Jade Water Alley. Have you been here the whole time? Marquis Gu asked. Yao Shi's expression did not change. Otherwise? Where does the Marquis think I went? Marquis Gu returned to the estate and violently beat Gu Changlin. Don't learn bad things and slander your mother. Who gave you the guts? Gu Changlin was whipped by his own father's leather whip. Gu Changlin cried out in grievance. I didn't slander her. I saw her leave the estate with my own eyes. She was sneaking around. With one look, I could tell she wasn't going to do anything proper. You still dare to quibble? Marquis Gu raised his hand and whipped him again. Gu Changlin exploded. If you don't believe me, go ask eldest brother and second brother. They also heard it. Yao Shi made an appointment with that man. She went to meet that wild man in secret. Coincidentally, at this time, Gu Chongqing passed by the door. Gu Changlin felt as if he had been pardoned and cried out, Eldest brother is here. Ask him. What is it? Gu Chongqing walked over. Marquis Gu said, This brat said that when you were in the restaurant, you heard Madam discussing a private meeting with a strange man. Gu Chongqing said, I didn't hear it. Gu Changlin was incredulous. Eldest brother, you're lying. I heard it all. Your hearing is better than mine. How could you not have heard it? You heard wrong. Gu Chongqing finished speaking and bowed to Marquis Gu. He turned and returned to his own courtyard. Marquis Gu really did not show any mercy this time. Gu Changlin was beaten very badly. Actually, Gu Changfeng also heard it. It was just that Gu Changfeng had gone to take on a mission to pay off a debt and was not in the estate. This time, although there was no danger, it allowed Yao Shi to once again see concubine Ling's methods. She was more and more certain that this concubine was not simple. Of course, she was vicious enough. It was not strange for her to deal with Yao Shi, but for her to use Gu Changlin, who she had raised single-handedly, it could be seen that this woman did not have a heart. What loving mother, what pampering, it was all a facade. Gu Changlin being raised into a cripple, half of it was because of the old madam, and the other half was because of this concubine. On the other side, the news that Gu Chongqing had the hidden guard investigate finally made progress. Study. The hidden guard bowed to Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing said calmly, What happened? Did you find those people from back then? The hidden guard said, Madam has a servant girl called Gu Ji. She married far away and her whereabouts are unknown. However, This subordinate found that her younger brother was guarding the ancestral grave in the Ling family. This subordinate asked him about Madam and concubine Ling. Gu Chongqing said, "Get to the main point." Hidden Guard said, Yao Shi had not seen Marquis before she married into the family. Yao Shi and Marquis are innocent. Yao Shi had an engagement before. This point, Gu Chongqing had already confirmed it when he saw Zhen Ping and Yao Shi interact last night. Yao Shi and Zhen Ping had not only had an engagement before, they had truly fallen in love with each other. The two had been forced to separate, and the Yao family had done bad things to Zhen Ping. The Hidden Guard said, Madam had indeed asked Yao Shi more than once to let her be Marquis' second wife. Madam did not know that Yao Shi was already engaged. Seeing that she could not refuse, Yao Shi confessed to Madam that she was about to get married. That day, concubine Ling was also there. Gu Chongqing frowned. So concubine Ling knew that Yao Shi was engaged. The reason why she did not say it in time was probably because she did not think that the marriage would succeed. There is one more thing. The Hidden Guard said, Marquis saved concubine Ling before. When did this happen? Gu Chongqing asked. The Hidden Guard said, many years ago. Even old Madam Ling did not know about this. This subordinate only found out after investigating concubine Ling's birth mother. It was after Madam and third young master's 1-month birthday. Madam was carrying third young master back home. Concubine Ling accidentally fell from the attic. It was Marquis who caught her. Concubine Ling might have been thinking about her brother-in-law at that time. Gu Chongqing's eyes became colder and colder. Continue. The Hidden Guard continued. Also, it was her birth mother who suggested that concubine Ling should be Marquis' concubine. Old Madam Ling and old Madam Gu did not think of this at first. Her birth mother succeeded in persuading them, but at this point, the Hidden Guard suddenly paused. Gu Chongqing looked at him coldly. But what? The Hidden Guard said, before concubine Ling got married, old Madam Ling gave her a bowl of infertility medicine. She could only get on the sedan after drinking it. Otherwise, the marriage would be cancelled. Gu Chongqing asked, she drank it? Yes. The Hidden Guard nodded. But Shitzi must not have guessed that old Madam also gave her a bowl of infertility medicine on the night she married into the Marquis' mansion. Old Madam Gu looked unreasonable, but the Hidden Guard did not think that she was so scheming. Gu Chongqing was also very surprised by this fact. He did not expect his grandmother to do this. In his mind, his grandmother was a gentler and kinder old woman than old Madam Gu. Who would have thought that the two of them would tacitly do this to concubine Ling without any discussion? The two elders were trying to protect their grandsons and grandsons. This was the truth of why concubine Ling could not have children for so many years. She told the three brothers that she would never have children in this life. It was not that she did not want to, but that she could not. Gu Chongqing did not know what to say for a moment. As a woman, she was very sad. But if it was not for her greed, how could she have ended up like this? The Hidden Guard said again, I have carefully investigated the rumors about Madame Yao these years. It was concubine Ling who sent people to spread them. Although I do not have enough evidence, the letter that framed Madame Yao for seducing Marquis should also be concubine Ling's writing. I see. Gu Chongqing was not too surprised by this result. But if she had coveted his father for a long time, then her mother had unintentionally become a thorn in her side. How did my mother die? Did she really die of illness? The Hidden Guard thought for a while and shook his head. I am afraid you will have to ask concubine Ling. The day before Madam died, concubine Ling accompanied old Madam Ling to the mansion to visit Madam. Madam's condition deteriorated rapidly that night. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_8264826/114046742. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 186. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao hadn't seen Yao Shi for a few days. Although Yao Shi had come over last night, Gu Jiao had gone to the emergency room and missed Yao Shi. Gu Jiao calculated that Yao Shi should have finished her medicine. After breakfast, she carried the small basket and went to the Marquise Fu. Yao Shi had been tricked by concubine Ling last night and was both shocked and angry. She fell asleep very late and didn't even go to old Madame Gu's morning visit. Nanny Fong sent someone to tell old Madame that she had caught a cold. She was afraid that old Madame would come back in 2 days to pay respects. If it was in the past, old Madame Gu would definitely think that Yao Shi didn't care about her mother-in-law. However, Yao Shi's performance these days had successfully won old Madame Gu's trust. Not only did old Madame Gu believe her, she also had a servant send a good quality ginseng to Yao Shi. It wasn't that she loved Yao Shi, but that the sooner Yao Shi got better, the sooner she could come and set the rules for her. Gu Jiao came at the right time. Yao Shi had just woken up and was drinking some porridge after washing up. When Yao Shi saw her daughter, her eyes couldn't help but fill with a smile. She walked over and took her daughter's hand into the warm room. "Why did you come over today? Is the medical center free?" "The medical center isn't busy," Gu Jiao said. Yao Shi and her daughter sat down on the stools by the table. She didn't like to sit on the official's chair. There was always a tea table between the official's chair and the chair, making people feel like they were separated. Gu Jiao put the small basket on the table and said to Yao Shi, "Your complexion is not good." Yao Shi touched her cheek and smiled. "I slept late." "Why did you sleep so late? Is there something bothering you?" Gu Jiao didn't know what happened to Yao Shi yesterday. Yao Shi thought about it and didn't know how to explain it to her daughter. Her daughter already had a hard time. She didn't want her daughter to worry about her. On the other hand, she couldn't mention her relationship with Zhenping to her daughter. However, even if she didn't say anything, it didn't mean that Nanny Fong wouldn't say anything. After Nanny Fong returned to the estate last night, she had coaxed and pestered, and even guessed the ins and outs of the matter. She felt that there was nothing that she couldn't tell eldest Mississippi. It's all because of concubine Ling. Nanny Fong gritted her teeth and told her about how concubine Ling had schemed against Madame Yao. "Originally, we thought that she would do something to the offerings, tamper with the carriage, or use the 3 young masters to humiliate Madame. Who would have thought that this wretched person would secretly investigate Madame and even use Madame's previous marriage to make an issue out of it? Ever since Madame married into the Marquis' household, she no longer had any contact with the Zhen family. But there were some things that it couldn't explain clearly. There must be a grudge in Master Ho's heart. Even if Master Ho was not angry, how could Madame not be angry? It wasn't easy for Madame to gain old Madame's trust. If she was caught by Marquis and 3rd young master yesterday, all her hard work would have been for naught. The more Nanny Fong thought about it, the angrier she became. She didn't understand how that person surnamed Ling came up with so many bad ideas. If the heir hadn't appeared in time, things wouldn't have ended well yesterday. It's all thanks to the heir. In fact, it didn't matter if Madame Yao's hard work was for naught. She was worried that a vicious woman like concubine Ling would use this matter to slander her children. At that time, there would be rumors in the household. Gu Jiao and Gu Yan were bastards and not Marquis Gu's flesh and blood. Madame Yao felt a wave of lingering fear when she thought about how her children almost had to bear such dirty water. Because of this, when Nanny Fong's words were full of gratitude towards Gu Chongqing, she didn't refute it. No matter what happened in the past or in the future, at least for this matter, she really should thank him. Gu Jiao remembered it in her heart. Gu Jiao suddenly remembered the dream of returning to the Marquis's household. In the dream, the person who instigated her relationship with Gu Jinyu and led her step by step to oppose Gu Jinyu was concubine Ling. In the beginning, Gu Jinyu treated the timid her quite well. In the dream, Madame Yao and Gu Yen had passed away and she was brought back to the capital by Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu also treated her well. After all, his wife and child had passed away. She was the only connection between Marquis Gu and Madame Yao in this world. She was the proof and crystallization of his relationship with Madame Yao. When Marquis Gu saw her, he would think of his wife who had passed away early and would repay all his longing for his wife on her. She was also very reliant on Marquis Gu. In the dream, she had a very harmonious relationship with her father and younger sister in the first 2 years. She couldn't compare to Gu Jinyu in anything, so Gu Jinyu was not jealous of her. On the contrary, Gu Jinyu worked very hard to teach her. But no matter how Gu Jinyu taught her, she could not learn. Gu Jinyu was very patient and loving towards people who could never surpass him. On the other hand, concubine Ling had always been a threat to Gu Jinyu. After Madame Yao passed away, concubine Ling worked hard to promote herself to the head wife. She worked hard in the household for more than 10 years and coaxed old Madame Gu and the Gu brothers into obedience. She was indeed only 1 step away from being promoted to the head wife. But Gu Jinyu did not want to see her promoted to the head wife. The two of them fought back and forth and turned the world upside down. In the end, the her in the dream became their cannon fodder. And now, because of the appearance of Madame Yao and the present her, the two of them had an even more troublesome enemy, so they stopped fighting each other. Oh! Gu Jiao made a sound of acknowledgement. Madame Yao was worried that her daughter was disturbing concubine Ling. She looked at Nanny Fong bitterly and said to Gu Jiao, "Once bitten, twice shy. Mother won't be fooled again. Mother will deal with her. Don't worry." Concubine Ling had been in the capital for more than 10 years and had the powerful Ling family as her backing. It would be very difficult for Madame Yao to pull her down in a short period of time. "Okay, I'm not worried," Gu Jiao said. She took out 2 bottles of medicine from the medicine box. She also removed the packaging and put them in porcelain bottles. "This is a new medicine. Use it the same as before." This medicine looked different from the previous one, but Gu Jiao had changed the medicine for her once, so Madame Yao did not suspect anything. Gu Jiao paused, as if she thought of something. She said to Madame Yao, "That's right, Grand Aunt has something that she wants me to give to you." "What is it?" Madame Yao asked. Gu Jiao opened the medicine box and took out a packet of medicine powder. "Grand Aunt said that you can understand it." Madame Yao took the small packet of medicine. Her little heart began to beat faster. Was the old madam giving her advice again? She did not have time to ask her for advice yesterday, but the old madam had already seen through her. Madame Yao's eyes flashed. She cleared her throat and said, "Ah, my courtyard has rats. I'll ask Grand Aunt for some rat medicine." Gu Jiao, oh. Gu Jiao got up and bid farewell. As soon as Gu Jiao left, Madame Yao could not wait to deal with concubine Ling. Concubine Ling had played such a big trick on her. She had been holding it in for an entire night, so she was furious. The old madam was her reassurance. With the old madam's advice, she was not afraid of anything. "Where is concubine Ling?" Madame Yao asked with great ambition. Nurse Fong was startled. "Madam, what do you want to do?" Madame Yao, "Drug her." Nurse Fong hesitated. "This is not appropriate, right? You drugged her last time. If you drug her again, it won't be so easy to succeed." Concubine Ling was now very vigilant. All of her food was strictly controlled, and she would not be tricked by Madame Yao again. Madame Yao frowned and said, "Since the old madam asked me to drug her, it means that this method must be the most effective. She should be the one to force it down." "Nurse Fong, are you sure that the medicine was given by the old madam? Why do I feel that there is something wrong with the eldest Mrs. Eyes?" Madame Yao thought carefully. Suddenly, An idea flashed through her mind. Give me the cloak. I want to pay respects to the old madam. Madame Yao went to old Madame Gu's pine crane courtyard and brought the snacks she made. They were actually leftovers from yesterday. The weather was cold, so they were not bad. Madame Yao carried the food box and bowed to old Madame Gu. Mother, your daughter-in-law has come late. Thank you for the ginseng. I feel much better after eating it. And Madame Gu was very pleased with Madame Yao's words and attitude. Old Madame Gu glanced at Madame Yao indifferently and said, There is no need to rush over. If you are sick, rest for a few more days. Otherwise, people will say that I am mean to my daughter-in-law. Madame Yao smiled slightly. What are you saying? It is your daughter-in-law's fortune to be able to serve Mother. Mother is blessed, so your daughter-in-law can also benefit from being by your side. No matter how many times one tried to flatter him, it was impossible to penetrate him. Old Madame Gu looked at the food box in her hand. Yao Shi smiled and walked forward. Daughter-in-law made the desserts that you like. Old Madame Gu happened to be a little hungry. Madame Yao opened the snack box and took out a few plates of exquisite and delicious snacks. She said to old Madame Gu, By the way, why don't I see concubine Ling? Why are you looking for her? Old Madame Gu asked. Madame Yao said, I forgot to return the key to the small storeroom to her. There are also some parts of this month's accounts that I don't understand. In the past, concubine Ling was the one who did the accounts, so I wanted to ask her. Old Madame Gu said indifferently, She will be here soon. Wait here. Madame Yao bowed. Yes. With old Madame Gu's approval, Madame Yao sat down at Pine Crane Courtyard with a clear conscience. Not long after, concubine Ling arrived. She was stunned when she saw Madame Yao. Madame Yao smiled and said to her, It has only been a day. Why is concubine Ling looking at me like this? Gu Chunglin had come to complain to concubine Ling early in the morning, saying that Madame Yao was not a good person. She had secretly met with a wild man and even let Madame Yao escape. Concubine Ling already knew that her plan last night had failed. She lamented that Madame Yao was really lucky. She could not even kill her like this. Concubine Ling said without batting an eyelid, Nothing. I heard that Madame was sick. I did not expect Madame to come pay respects to old Madame while sick. She was not afraid of infecting old Madame Gu with her illness. Madame Yao said, Concubine Ling, you are quite concerned about my courtyard. As soon as she said this, Concubine Ling's expression tightened. She did not come to Pine Crane Courtyard just now. Logically speaking, she should not know about Madame Yao's illness. However, she had said it so rashly. Was she not saying that she had been monitoring Pine Crane Courtyard? Concubine Ling could monitor Madame Yao, but she could not monitor old Madame Gu. Old Madame Gu frowned. Concubine Ling quickly said, I heard from the Marquis. The Marquis went to the Yamen this morning and I met him. Madame Yao was shocked. The Marquis did not return to the residence last night. Something seemed to have happened at the Ministry of Works recently. The Marquis went to buy Shui Alley and brought her back to the residence. He did not even enter the main gate before going to the Ministry of Works. Concubine Ling's words were making things worse. Old Madame Gu was not stupid. How could she not see that Concubine Ling was trying to justify herself? Old Madame Gu's face turned colder. Concubine Ling was extremely embarrassed. She scolded Madame Yao in her heart. What kind of medicine did Madame Yao eat? She was getting more and more difficult to deal with. Madame Yao tried to smooth things over. Forget it. Maybe one of the maids in my courtyard let it slip. Concubine Ling did not do it on purpose. Mother, I am tired of eating too many snacks. I will go and make some flower tea for you. Not only was Madame Yao good at making snacks, but the tea was also very fragrant. Old Madame Gu nodded. Madame Yao went to the tea room to make a pot of flower tea. Concubine Ling, do you want a cup? Concubine Ling did not dare to drink Madame Yao's tea. Madame Yao said, This flower tea is made from dried flowers that Mother personally chose. It is much more fragrant than the dried flowers I bought outside. If Concubine Ling did not try Madame Gu's things, wouldn't she be disrespecting her? Moreover, Concubine Ling thought that Madame Yao should not have the guts to poison her in front of Madame Gu. Madame Yao was a newborn calf who was not afraid of tigers. She did not think as thoroughly as Concubine Ling, so she did not have as many scruples as Concubine Ling. She put the powder that Gu Jiao gave her into Concubine Ling's tea. One dared to give, and the other dared to take. Concubine Ling was still very careful. After taking a sip, she waited for a long time. When she did not feel any discomfort, she took a second and third sip. It had to be said that Madame Yao's tea skills were indeed superb. She hated Madame Yao so much, but she could not help but drink the whole cup. Until night, there was no bad news from Concubine Ling. Madame Yao was puzzled. Could it be that the old madam did not give her poison? The abnormality happened the next day. Concubine Ling came to greet Madame Gu early in the morning. When she smelled the smell of steamed buns, she suddenly vomited. Madame Gu made her feel very uncomfortable, but she still asked someone to call the doctor over. The doctor took the pulse and immediately said to Madame Gu, "Congratulations, Madame Gu. Concubine Ling is pregnant." Digression, Marquis Gu. Oh, you can get pregnant yourself? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/114043320. HTML Genius. Remember the address of this website in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile version reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 187. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Old Madame Gu looked at the doctor in shock. "What did you say? Pregnancy pulse?" The doctor said, "Yes, old madam, it's a pregnancy pulse." Old Madame Gu said, "Are you sure you didn't make a mistake?" The house doctor smiled, "Although my medical skills aren't that great, I can't make a mistake about the pregnancy pulse. Congratulations, old madam. You are going to have a baby grandson." Old Madame Gu's expression became strange. She never expected that she would have another grandson at this age, especially when the one who gave birth to her grandson was Concubine Ling, who had been forced by her to be infertile. Could it be that the medicine had lost its effect? The doctor did mention that the effect of this medicine varied from person to person. Some people would not have children for their whole life, and very few people would get pregnant again after a few years. Forget it, if it lost its effect, then so be it. In the past, she did not allow Concubine Ling to give birth to her child because Gu Chongqing and his brothers were still young. Old Madame Gu was worried that Concubine Ling's son would threaten the three brothers' status. Now that Gu Chongqing had been conferred the title of heir apparent by the emperor, he was the rightful heir of the Lord Protector's manor. Gu Chengfeng and Gu Chenglin were also grown up. It did not matter if they had another little brother. Considering that Concubine Ling had taken care of the three brothers for so many years, it was not impossible to give her a son for the rest of her life. Thinking about it, old Madame Gu suddenly had some expectations for the child in Concubine Ling's belly. "How many months?" she asked the doctor. The doctor said, "From the pulse, it should be a little more than a month." A trace of panic flashed across Concubine Ling's face. "But I just had my period a few days ago." The doctor smiled. "That's also true." Old Madame Gu nodded thoughtfully. "That's right. When I was pregnant with Concubine Shu, I also had my period. I almost thought that I was not pregnant. Concubine Ling wanted to say something but stopped. Old Madame Gu took Concubine Ling's hand and said gently, "No wonder you were not feeling well recently. So you are pregnant. Recuperate well and give birth to a fat grandson for me. The Marquis's estate will not treat you unfairly." This was not a question of mistreatment, but Concubine Ling clenched her fists. Suddenly, a servant reported from outside, "Old Madam is here." Old Madame Gu had already accepted the child in Concubine Ling's stomach and was in a good mood. "Let her in." Concubine Ling panicked. She grabbed Old Madame Gu's hand and said, I don't want to see Madam." Yao Shi was faster than her. Before she finished speaking, Yao Shi had already lifted the curtain and entered the room. Madame Yao handed the hot water bottle to senior servant Fong, who had followed her in, and smiled at Concubine Ling. "What's wrong with Concubine Ling? Why do you suddenly not want to see me? Wasn't everything fine yesterday? Why was Concubine Mother lying down? You look so pale." As Yao Shi spoke, she looked at the doctor in the room and then looked at old Madame Gu. "Mother, did something happen to Concubine Mother?" Old Madame Gu gave a rare smile and said, "Concubine Ling is pregnant. She is more than a month pregnant." Concubine Ling looked at Yao Shi in panic. Yao Shi asked strangely, "Is there a mistake? Ever since the Marquis came back from the mountain villa, he has never rested in Concubine Mother's room. How could Concubine Mother be pregnant?" As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression changed. Marquis Gu had lived in the mountain villa for half a year and returned for 2 months. If Marquis Gu had touched Concubine Ling before that, then Concubine Ling should have given birth by now. Concubine Ling's face was as pale as paper. Old Madame Gu's face was as black as charcoal. "Is what you said true?" Yao Shi had a wronged expression. "If Mother doesn't believe me, you can call the Marquis over and ask him." Old Madame Gu naturally sent someone to call the Marquis's estate's heir. Marquis Gu was badly battered by his superior in the Ministry of Works. He didn't even have time to eat breakfast when he heard Huang Zhong report, "Marquis, old Madame sent someone over." "What is it?" Marquis Gu asked with a headache. Huang Zhong said, "She said that something urgent has happened in the estate and wants you to go back immediately." Marquis Gu frowned. "Can I go back now?" Huang Zhong smiled bitterly. "Old Madam wants you to go back no matter what." Marquis Gu face-bombed. "What is it?" Huang Zhong said awkwardly, "I asked, but he said Old Madam didn't say anything. Old Madam wants to ask the Marquis in person." Marquis Gu's head was about to explode. Why did everyone come to find him at this time? Who did he offend? Marquis Gu returned to the Marquis's estate in a mess. In Pine Crane Courtyard, old Madame Gu had the servants invite a few skilled doctors to take Concubine Ling's pulse. Without exception, they all said that it was a pregnancy pulse. This time, there was no doubt that she was pregnant. After all, this was related to her son's reputation. Other than the few people in the room, old Madame Gu didn't let anyone else know. She said that those doctors were all given hush money by old Madame Gu. In Zhao country, there was a tradition that people couldn't talk about it until they were 3 months old. The doctors only thought that the Gu family was the same. They tacitly accepted the money and left happily. As for the fact that Marquis Ding An's Fu didn't have a child in the future, that wasn't strange. Pregnancy was a difficult and risky matter. No one could guarantee that the child would be born smoothly. Marquis Gu entered Pine Crane Courtyard. Old Madame Gu's trusted mama had been waiting in the central room for a long time. "Marquis, you finally came back." "Old Madame has been waiting anxiously." Marquis Gu said, "No, I just met a few doctors at the door." "Is my mother's health not very good?" "It's not old Madame." Old Madame Gu didn't know how to explain and sighed. "Marquis, go in and take a look." She opened the curtain and let Marquis Gu enter the room. There were only 4 people in the room. Old Madame Gu, Yao Shi, Mama Fong and Concubine Ling, who was lying on the bed with a pale face. Marquis Gu first bowed to old Madame Gu. "Mother." He then walked to Yao Shi's side. Seeing that Yao Shi was unharmed, he relaxed. He looked at old Madame Gu again. Mother, why did you call your son back in such a hurry? Did something happen? Old Madame Gu said seriously, have you been to Concubine Ling's room in the past 2 months? Marquis Gu glanced at Yao Shi. Mother, why are you asking this? Old Madame Gu said with a heavy face, don't look at your wife. Tell me honestly, have you been there or not? Marquis Gu coughed lightly and said, I went once. Did you leave a room? Old Madame Gu asked. Of course not. Marquis Gu's body shook. I was just passing by. Lin happened to be in her courtyard and called for me. I went in and said a few words to Lin before leaving. At that time, Gu Chunlin had not recovered from his injuries and was sitting in a wheelchair. The top he was playing with flew to the roof. He went in and picked up the top. Old Madame Gu said seriously, don't say this because your wife is here. Marquis Gu's expression became serious. I didn't. Leave first. Old Madame Gu said to Yao Shi. Yes. Yao Shi bowed and turned to walk out the door. Marquis Gu gently pulled on her sleeve and whispered in her ear, I really didn't. Believe me. Yao Shi did not speak. She pulled back her sleeve and silently left the room. Tell me the truth. Old Madame Gu looked at her son. Marquis Gu was anxious. Son is telling the truth. Old Madame Gu's white eyebrows furrowed. So the child in her stomach is really not yours? Marquis Gu was stunned. What child? Old Madame Gu said unhappily, she is pregnant, more than a month. She had finally accepted this child, but it turned out to be a bastard. Old Madame Gu was furious. Marquis Gu looked coldly at Concubine Ling. Although he did not like Concubine Ling, it did not mean that he would allow her to cheat on him. Concubine Ling had already fainted from anger. She only woke up now. When she opened her eyes, she was met with Marquis Gu's death stare. She trembled and almost fainted again. She climbed up from the bed and knelt on the edge of the bed to grab Marquis Gu's hand. Marquis! I am not pregnant. I am not. Marquis Gu coldly retracted his hand. Whether you are pregnant or not, don't you know in your heart? I am really not. Concubine Ling felt wronged. This was much more wronged than when she was poisoned by Yao Shi. Instead, people thought that she was playing the victim. Her heart was filled with this man. She had admired him since she was a teenager. In order to marry him, she had schemed. How could she betray him? She choked, Marquis, it doesn't matter if others don't believe me. You must believe me. Unfortunately, Marquis Gu did not believe her. Concubine Ling shouted, It's Madam. It must be Madam. She did something. She made me flower tea yesterday. There is something wrong with the flower tea. That flower tea is mine. Old Madame Gu was furious. Concubine Ling hurriedly said, I mean, when she made the tea, she did something. She drugged my tea. Is there a drug that can make people pregnant? Old Madame Gu expressed that she had never heard of such a drug in her life. Did Concubine Ling think she was a fool? This was naturally not a drug that could make people pregnant. It was just a drug that could forcefully change a person's pulse. Concubine Ling was more miserable. Not only did her pulse change, but she also had the side effects of the drug. Even the symptoms of early pregnancy were matched. Concubine Ling turned to look at old Madame Gu. Mother, don't you remember that I took the infertility drug? How can I be pregnant? Old Madame Gu snorted, maybe the drug's effect has worn off. This was the first time Marquis Gu heard about the infertility drug. But it was not important. This damned woman had cheated on him and was pregnant with someone else's bastard child. He was so angry. Concubine Ling saw that the two did not believe her and gritted her teeth. Fine, you don't believe me. You both think that I cheated on Marquis Gu. Then find the adulterer. She was not like Yao Shi, who had an old lover. Marquis Gu called Huang Zhong and asked him to find Concubine Ling's adulterer. What is this? Huang Zhong braced himself and went to find the adulterer. The first place he searched was Concubine Ling's residence. It was not that he suspected that the adulterer was hiding here, but since this was where concubine Ling lived, there would definitely be some clues left behind. Just as Huang Zhongqian stepped into the courtyard, a petite figure leaped over the wall and into the courtyard. She came to concubine Ling's yard, intending to put the evidence of concubine Ling's crime inside. But she saw a person. Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing had also just arrived. The curtains were so thick that no light could pass through. The room was dark, but Gu Chongqing still recognized Gu Jiao at a glance. The two of them stared at each other for 3 seconds. Gu Jiao, I'm here to put something in. Gu Chongqing opened his mouth, coughed lightly and said seriously, what a coincidence, me too. Gu Jiao, Gu Chongqing, Gu Jiao, why does this happen every time I do something shady? Does she not deserve to do the task alone? Gu Jiao silently put the evidence forged by the old chancellor into the drawer. Gu Chongqing also put his own evidence in. The two of them were silent for a while. Gu Jiao, let's not put them together. Gu Chongqing, that's true. The two of them took out their evidence at the same time. One of them put it in the wardrobe, and the other under the pillow. Huang Zhong is here. Gu Chongqing heard the movement outside the yard and hurriedly reminded Gu Jiao, intending to take her out. But when he turned his head, there was no sign of Gu Jiao. Gu Chongqing. That's not necessary. In Pine Crane Courtyard, concubine Mother Ling had already regained her wits. Yao She was only able to harm her because of the old madam's convenience. If she really wanted to extend her hand into her courtyard, it would be impossible. Otherwise, why would she drug her in the Pine Crane yard? Search. She wanted to see what Huang Zhong was able to find out. Marquis. Madame Gu. I found it. Huang Zhong rushed in with 2 boxes in his hands. Concubine Ling frowned. What was going on? Marquis Gu and Madame Gu opened the boxes. The two of them first opened the box that Gu Jiao had given them. In the dream when they returned to the residence, concubine Ling had been secretly looking for medicine to treat her infertility. But concubine Ling was very careful. Every time she read the prescription, she would immediately destroy it. Gu Jiao forged a new one for her. The old chancellor was very skilled and knew how to make old prescriptions. He even made prescriptions from more than 10 years ago. In addition to the prescriptions, the old chancellor played 2 roles and wrote dozens of sentimental love letters. The old chancellor came from a poor family. Before he became successful, he used to earn money by writing romance novels. The sales volume was always the highest. His writing style was very good. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642/896428266/11401440. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 188. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. Marquis Gu slapped on the table. There are witnesses and evidence. What else do you have to say? Those words were obviously the handwriting of concubine Ling. Concubine Ling herself was stunned. For a moment, she suspected that she had lost her memory. Did she really write it? Of course, this adulterer didn't exist. In order to make the whole story more reasonable, the old chancellor finally wrote a letter of severance between the two of them in a very sad tone. Basically, it said, I've had enough of this kind of shady days. I can't stand you returning to another man. Goodbye, the love of my heart. Don't come to me. I will go to a place where there is no one and end the rest of my life with the memories of the two of us. These letters are the proof that I have stayed in your world. I hope to leave them with you and cherish them. Well, he even filled in the hole of why Concubine Ling was holding the love letter he wrote. If there was no love letter from Concubine Ling, then it could only be regarded as the adulterer's one-sided statement. Concubine Ling just didn't admit that it was written for her. It was because of her handwritten reply that this romantic story had a sense of immersion and persuasiveness. Marquis Gu. No wonder I couldn't find the adulterer. It turned out that the adulterer had left the capital. Marquis Gu fumed. Not only was he angry that Concubine Ling cheated on him, but he was also angry that the adulterer's writing was much better than his. He couldn't write such a mushy sentence. I'll take a small note and write it for Madam in the future. Marquis Gu was absolutely angry that Concubine Ling cheated on him. But he could still be distracted at this moment, which meant that Concubine Ling didn't have much weight in his heart. It was purely a matter of a man's face. In contrast, it was old Madame Gu who was beside him who was very angry. Concubine Ling was too shameless. Wasn't the man at home good? Why did he have to cheat outside? Which wild man outside could be compared with her son? She trembled all over and pointed at Concubine Ling's nose. I used to think that you were a good person. I treated you like my own daughter. I didn't give you a lot of food and clothes. Although you are only a concubine, you have a better life in the mansion than the legal wife. In the end, this is how you repay the Marquis? Auntie Ling thought to herself, that's right. She's even more glamorous than the legal wife. Isn't that because she drank the childless soup? If she also gave birth to a son to compete with Gu Chongqing and his two brothers for the family business, would old Madam still think so highly of her? She didn't say that out loud. Old Madame Gu would not feel ashamed even if she told her. She would only think that she was shameless and insatiable. Back then, she was the one who begged to enter the Lord Protector's manor. She was also the one who willingly drank the contraceptive soup. Nothing was more important than the Lord Protector's manor and her sister's child. Could it be that she was farting? Actually, Concubine Ling had never said these words, but old Madame Gu was only willing to believe what she wanted to believe. She just thought that Concubine Ling had said it. When she drank the infertility medicine, Concubine Ling had also widened her teary eyes and looked at old Madame Gu pitifully. She didn't refuse because she couldn't. It was definitely not because she was willing to do so. However, old Madame Gu wanted it to misinterpret it as voluntary. Old Madame Gu could tolerate Concubine Ling framing Yao, but she would never allow Concubine Ling to let her son down. Concubine Ling said sadly, "Don't you understand what kind of person I am? Why would I do anything to let the Lord Protector down?" The evidence was conclusive, but old Madame Gu didn't listen. Concubine Ling had poured dirty water on Yao back then, and now she had poured it back 10 times to herself. Concubine Ling's fingernails dug into her flesh. "Fine, you say that I'm pregnant. Then I'd like to see if I can give birth to a child in 10 months. However, did she really have 10 months to prove the truth of her belly? Marquis Gu opened the second box. There were actually 2 account books inside. The first book was the Lord Protector's Manor's account book. It was obviously not the public account book, but Concubine Ling's private account book. It recorded that Concubine Ling had embezzled as much as 200,000 taels of silver from the Lord Protector's manor. One had to know that Lord Gu's annual salary was only a few hundred taels of silver. It would take him 500 years to save this amount of silver even if he didn't eat or drink. A portion of the money was for her to supplement her brother's living expenses. Compared to the down-and-out Yao family, Concubine Ling's 2 brothers who lived separately from the Lord Protector's manor lived a much better life. It was also at this moment that old Madame Gu felt that Yao was much more reliable than this Ling. At least Yao wouldn't use the Lord Protector's manor's hard-earned money to supplement her family. There was also a part of the silver that Concubine Ling had converted into gold bars and deposited in the bank. This was for herself. Old Madame Gu didn't know what she was saving this money for. Could it be that she was planning to elope with that wild man? Old Madame Gu was about to die from anger. The remaining 10,000 taels of silver were recorded in a more interesting way. She didn't know what it was used for. Only the names of a few servants were recorded. Zhang De. Lord Gu muttered this name. He felt that it sounded familiar. Huang Zhong said, "Lord Gu, is it that little Zhong?" Lord Gu pondered, "Little Zhong?" Huang Zhong explained, "Zhong Budo. That guy who won't get drunk even after 1,000 cups. He's quite good at drinking. He used to be in charge of the warehouse. After that, he chauffeured carriages for the previous madam for more than a year." Lord Gu had an impression of him. He loved to drink and always caused trouble. Later, he was sent back to the warehouse by Madame Ling. "Is he still in the manor?" "Yes," Huang Zhong said. "What about these people?" Lord Gu handed the account book to Huang Zhong. "These people are all here. This one called Lu Chun. Huang Zhong wasn't sure. "She's not here anymore. But I know where she lives." Old Madame Gu's trusted nanny said from outside the curtain. Huang Zhong and the nanny split up to look for people. Most of the servants in the account book were found. There were a few who were missing, but it didn't affect the final investigation. Lord Gu confronted them in front of concubine Ling. They didn't admit it at first. Lord Gu said coldly, "It's fine if you don't admit it. It's written here. How much silver did you take? Immediately return it to me. If you don't return it, I'll take it that you stole it. I'll report it to the officials. I'm the Lord. If I report it to the officials and arrest people, I'm afraid they won't be able to come out alive." As soon as he said this, everyone was stunned. Zhang Budo was the most cowardly. He was the first to kowtow and beg for mercy. "Have mercy, Lord Gu. I'll tell you. This money was given to us by concubine Ling. She told us to spread the news that Madam killed the previous Madam in the manor and all over the capital. She also told us to break third young master's favorite inkstone and frame little young master." A nanny said. "She told us to tell second young master and third young master that once Lord Gu has a new madam, he won't want them anymore. If the new madam gives birth to a son, Lord Gu's manor will belong to the younger brother." Another nanny said. Among these people, there were some who had served Gu Changfeng and Gu Changlin closely. Gu Changfeng and Gu Changlin had a great prejudice against Yao. On one hand, it was because of old Madame Gu and the Ling family. On the other hand, it was because of the incitement of these servants. However, their incitement was very skillful. It was all guided by concubine Ling behind the scenes. She was able to make the two brothers listen to her and not betray the servants. A manservant said, "Also, that time when we locked the darkroom. Third young master didn't have enough strength and didn't close the door tightly. It was concubine Ling who told us to close the door tightly. Even Gu Changlin didn't know about this matter. He really thought that he had closed the door tightly. Gu Yen couldn't open the door. His heart disease acted up and he almost died inside. Lord Gu also almost beat Gu Changlin and his two brothers to death. Gu Chongqing was always by the old Lord Gu's side. Concubine Ling couldn't do anything to him, so she extended her control to Gu Changfeng and Gu Changlin. Every time the two of them were wronged by Lord Gu and cried that their father was bad and they didn't want their father anymore, the servants would say, "It's not Lord Gu's fault. Lord Gu used to treat you very well. It's because Yao gave birth to a younger brother for you that Lord Gu ignored you." The two children vented all their anger on Gu Yen. Poor Gu Yen at such a young age. He skipped to find his older brother, but in return, he was abused by his older brothers. Marquis Gu's anger finally exploded. He stood up and kicked concubine Ling in the chest, causing her to flip over. Concubine Ling fell heavily to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. The moment when her heart was truly cold was now. When he believed that she was pregnant with another man's bastard child, he wasn't even this angry. However, she only dealt with Yao and Gu Yen a little, and he was so angry? Weren't that slut and her son fine? Weren't they doing just fine? Was it because of the 200,000 taels? Ha, she was like a cow or a horse in this family. Even her right to be a mother was taken away. Was she not worth the money? Why did you do this? Lord Gu looked at Concubine Ling in confusion. Why? Concubine Ling smiled. Of course it's because of you, Lord Gu. From the moment I fell from the attic and was caught by you, I wanted to marry you. But why are you my brother-in-law? When I saw elder sister with you, I was so jealous that I almost went crazy. Elder sister is dead. Elder sister was very good to me when she was alive. But I'm not sad, not at all. Because I know that my chance has come. Lord Gu had people take Concubine Ling away. Concubine Ling's crimes were unforgivable. But first, she was the Ling family's daughter. Second, the three sons did not know of Concubine Ling's crimes. If they rashly dealt with her, the sons would not believe it and insist that Yao Shi did something to her. Then the misunderstanding would become even deeper. Lord Gu suddenly felt very tired. He had not heard many rumors about Yao Shi. First, no one dared to say it in front of him. Second, Yao Shi never complained to him. He would occasionally hear the servants gossip, but he would send them away on the spot. Lord Gu, how should we deal with these servants? Huang Zhong asked. Lord Gu impatiently said, They're just a few servants. You even have to ask this lord about this? Yes, yes. Sigh, to be blamed, how pitiful. Huang Zhong punished the servants who should be punished and sold the ones who should be sold. In short, they were not allowed to take half a step into the Lord Gu Fu. Lord Gu, Huang Zhong said, It's late, you should go back and rest. Unknowingly, it was already midnight. Yao Shi had already returned to her courtyard. Old Madame Gu was so angry that she had a headache. After returning to her room and taking medicine, she also went to rest. Lord Gu was exhausted, but he did not go to rest. Instead, he went to Gu Changfeng and Gu Qinglin's courtyard. Gu Changfeng had just returned from a mission and was almost drained dry. His face was pale, but it matched the appearance of someone who was woken up in the middle of the night. Lord Gu, call your eldest brother over. His aura was not right. The brothers looked at each other, not understanding what had happened to their father. Gu Chunglin said, Eldest brother went to the military camp. Lord Gu said tiredly, All right, I'll talk to you two first. Lord Gu did not mention Concubine Ling's affair. First, it was dishonorable. Second, it was not good to talk about it in front of the children. He only talked about Concubine Ling's embezzlement of money and how she bribed the servants to create rumors and sow discord. The two brothers were stunned. Little Madame Ling had passed away early. When Concubine Ling entered the Fu, the two brothers were still at an age where they relied on their mother. They absorbed their mother's warmth from Concubine Ling. In their hearts, Concubine Ling was their second mother. Gu Chunglin stood up from his chair. I don't believe it. Concubine Ling would not do that. It must be Yao Shi. It must be that bitch Yao Shi who slandered Concubine Ling. Who are you calling a bitch? Lord Gu also stood up coldly. This time, Gu Changfeng stood in front of his younger brother. He would not allow Concubine Ling to be wronged, and he would not allow his father to punish his younger brother for a crime that should not be committed. For the first time, Lord Gu felt a different aura from his second son, but he did not think too much about it. He clenched his fists. The evidence is conclusive. Those servants are still being punished in the stable. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask. Gu Chunglin said, They were all bribed by Yao Shi. Whatever Yao Shi told them to say, they said it. I don't believe their words. I want to see Concubine Ling. I will ask her myself. I only believe her. Lord Gu flew into a rage. Unfilial son. Gu Chunglin ignored him. In Gu Qinglin's heart, Concubine Ling was much more important than his biological father. When he was sick, it was Concubine Ling who took care of him without caring for him. When he missed his mother, it was Concubine Ling who hugged him all night. When he was beaten by his biological father for no reason, It was Concubine Ling who comforted him, coaxed him, and made delicious food for him. Concubine Ling was the person who treated him the best in this world besides his biological mother. He only wanted Concubine Ling. Gu Chunlin rushed to Concubine Ling's courtyard. Gu Chungfeng was also very worried about Concubine Ling's condition, so he followed along. Concubine Ling. Gu Chunlin arrived outside the courtyard. The guard stopped him. "Third young master, you cannot go in." "Out of the way." Gu Chunlin rudely pushed the guard who was guarding the door. However, he could not push him. Gu Chungfeng walked over and moved his fingertips. The guard felt something hit his knee and his body bent. Gu Chunlin took the opportunity to push him to the side and entered the courtyard with Gu Changfeng. Concubine Ling. Concubine Ling. Gu Chunlin hurried to Concubine Ling's room. The room was quiet. There was no light, only a thin ray of moonlight shone in from outside the door. "Concubine Ling?" Gu Chunlin called out softly. Concubine Ling sat in front of the dressing table with her hair disheveled, staring at the bronze mirror in a daze. In just a short day, she no longer seemed to be young and beautiful. Concubine Ling. Gu Chunlin came behind Concubine Ling. Concubine Ling was very quiet. However, it was not difficult to see that she had cried bitterly just now from her red and swollen eyes. There was also blood at the corner of her mouth. Gu Chunlin's heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. He knelt down on one knee and looked up at Concubine Ling with heartache. "Concubine Ling? Did father hit you? He's too much of a bastard. I won't talk to him any more. I don't want him any more." Concubine Ling's eyes were red and filled with tears. She raised her hand and caressed Gu Chunlin's cheek. "Silly child." Gu Chunlin pressed his cheek against her palm and said solemnly, "They said that you framed Yao and even forged evidence to slander you. Concubine Ling, don't worry, I won't be fooled. Father was deceived by that vixen. I will think of a way to clear your name." Concubine Ling said, "Didn't you think that she was stupid and couldn't do anything to frame people?" Gu Chunlin snorted. "That was in the past. When I saw her secretly meeting with someone and making me miss, I knew that she wasn't simple. She's not a good person. Concubine Ling, if the manor can't tolerate you, then I won't stay. I'll take you away. I'll take you away from the Marquis's mansion." Concubine Ling smiled bitterly. "You are the son of the Marquis. The Marquis will not let you leave the Marquis's mansion. You will be caught." Gu Chunlin choked and quickly said, He can't catch me. Let's go to the Ling family and hide. Grandmother will definitely make the decision for me." "She will make the decision for you, but she won't make the decision for me. My value was already squeezed dry the moment you grew up." Concubine Ling looked at him with tears in her eyes and choked. "Let Concubine Ling hug you again." Gu Chunlin nodded, wrapped his arms around Concubine Ling's waist, and buried his head in her arms. Suddenly, he felt a pain in his chest. Everything happened too quickly. Before Gu Chungfeng could react, Concubine Ling's dagger had already stabbed into Gu Chunlin's heart. Gu Chunlin looked down at the dagger in his heart and raised his head in disbelief. "Aunt, Mother, the latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/114010967. HTML Genius, remember the address of this website: www.zhbqg.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Reading Website: zhbqg.com. Chapter 189. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Concubine Ling did not show any mercy. She really planned to stab Gu Chenglin to death. The viciousness in her eyes was completely different from the gentleness in the past. Gu Chengfeng came back to his senses and hurriedly pulled her away. Gu Chenglin fell into a pool of blood. He opened his sad eyes and stared blankly at Concubine Ling, who had fallen to the ground with a triumphant expression. They had all let her down. They had all let her down. Then she would destroy them all. Didn't these two old farts treasure Gu Chenglin the most? Then she would kill him. And Gu Chenglin, he loved her the most, as if he loved his own mother. This stab must have hurt Gu Chenglin badly, right? Do you really think I like you very much? If it wasn't for the sake of staying in the Marquis's mansion, would I be willing to look at you? Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Concubine Ling laughed crazily. A strong wind blew outside the room, blowing all the curtains. Her laughter was like the wail of a malicious spirit. The concubine who thought she loved them was only using them as tools to gain favor. How ironic, how humiliating. The two brothers had suffered a terrible blow. It was not an exaggeration to say that the sky had fallen. Gu Chengfeng's mind was completely numb. He instinctively patted Gu Chenglin's pale face. Third brother. Third brother. Gu Chenglin's situation was very bad. Blood dyed his clothes red, and his breath was rapidly weakening. Gu Chengfeng rushed out of the door with him in his arms. Doctor! Call the doctor! The manor doctor had experienced a day full of ups and downs. First, Concubine Ling was mysteriously pregnant. Then, the third young master was stabbed in the heart. He felt that he was getting old and could not adapt to the life in the Marquis's manor. The doctor hurriedly checked Gu Chenglin's injury. Logically speaking, the knife should be pulled out and then stitched up Gu Chenglin's wound. However, the knife was stabbed in the wrong place. It was almost stabbed in his heart. If it was pulled out, the blood would not stop. But if it was not pulled out, Gu Chenglin would not be able to hold on for long. In other words, Gu Chenglin was hopeless. The doctor said sorrowfully, "Please forgive the old madam for being powerless." What happened? Marquis Gu rushed in anxiously. Just now, when the two brothers went to find Concubine Ling, although he was half dead with anger, he did not expect that something would really happen. Seeing Gu Chenglin covered in blood and with a knife in his heart, he felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Among his 4 sons, he doted on Gu Yen the most, but that didn't mean he didn't dote on the other 3. Huang Zhong, quickly call for the imperial physician. He roared. Huang Zhong left without stopping for a moment. As soon as Huang Zhong left, Gu Chongqing entered the residence. It was true that he had gone to the barracks, but he felt uneasy, so he came back. He was a warrior. He had killed people and been injured before. The moment he saw Gu Chenglin, he knew that Gu Chenglin was beyond saving. Even the most experienced medical officer in the military camp could not treat injuries of this degree. At first, Gu Chenglin was only bleeding from his wound. Soon, his body began to tremble and he began to vomit blood. Gu Chengfeng blamed himself to death. It was all his fault. He did not keep an eye on his third brother. If he was even a little bit vigilant towards Concubine Ling, like he was towards Concubine Yao, he would have reacted. Gu Chengfeng held Gu Chenglin's hand, big drops of tears falling down. Gu Chongqing clenched his fists. His eyes flashed with endless coldness. At that moment, no one knew what he was thinking. He suddenly strode forward. His hands went around Gu Chenglin's back and knees, and carefully picked him up. "What are you doing?" Marquis Gu asked. "Taking him to a physician," Gu Chongqing said seriously. Marquis Gu said angrily, "What physician? Huang Zhong has already gone to call for the imperial physician. He is so seriously injured. Don't move him." He was a martial artist. He still had this common sense. People who were seriously injured should not be moved casually. It was easy to tear the wound. Gu Chongqing said, "The imperial physician can't save him." Marquis Gu was furious. If the imperial physician can't save him, then the physicians outside can? Don't you know what time it is? Which physician would open the door and wait for you to treat him? Gu Changfeng also looked at Gu Chongqing, eldest brother. Gu Chongqing did not explain. If that person could not save him, then all the imperial physicians would be useless. He did not know how good that person's medical skills were, but he knew the ceiling of Zhao country's imperial physicians. They could not treat this kind of injury. Gu Chongqing was a person who valued rules. No matter how close he was to Marquis Gu, he had never openly disobeyed his father. This was the first time that he was so determined to go against Marquis Gu. Unfilial son, come back. Marquis Gu went forward to grab him, but was blocked by Gu Chongqing's hidden guards. Gu Chongqing's hidden guards were given by the old Marquis. They only listened to Gu Chongqing. Marquis Gu was so angry that he stomped his feet. He cursed his own father hundreds of times in his heart. Am I still your biological son? Gu Chongqing wrapped Gu Chunglin in a cloak and carried him out of the fu. The cold wind rustled. He carefully protected his younger brother in his arms. He could feel that Gu Qinglin's breathing was slowly weakening. This was not just a matter of the injury. Gu Chunglin himself seemed to have lost the will to live. You can't die. I promised Mother that I would take care of you too. He forced himself to calm down. In fact, because he was too worried about Gu Chunglin, he did not notice a familiar breath not far away. Gu Chongfeng saw his older brother arrive at Bai Shui Alley. He was shocked. Gu Jiao slept until midnight. Suddenly, she was awakened by a knock on the door. She went to open the door first. She was not afraid that someone would rob her in the middle of the night. She could rob them back without worrying about the other party reporting to the authorities. She opened the door and saw Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing was holding a bloody youth in his arms. Gu Jiao had beaten Gu Chunglin before. Of course, she recognized him. She was not surprised that this kid had been stabbed. Gu Chongqing's expression was very complicated. He understood the discord between Gu Chunglin and the siblings. He also understood that Gu Jiao was not very willing to see Gu Chunglin. But he had no other choice. He looked at Gu Jiao. He opened his mouth and said with difficulty, "Please save him." On the roof not far away, Gu Qingfeng's heart felt like it was being stabbed by needles. Was this still the arrogant big brother? Was this the cold-faced Yama in the military camp who never bowed his head to anyone? He was actually begging a little girl in such a low voice. What would she do? Would she refuse Big Brother? Gu Jiao opened both doors. Come in. Gu Chongqing carried Gu Chunglin into the courtyard. Xiao Lulang also woke up. He walked out in thin clothes and glanced at Gu Chongqing and Gu Chunglin, who was in his arms. Gu Chongqing had come here to take care of Gu Yen who had acne, so Xiao Lulang knew him. But Xiao Lulang had never seen Gu Chunglin. Gu Chunglin was injured, and blood was dripping from his wound. Xiao Lulang did not ask much. He said to Gu Jiao, "Go to my place. I'll carry little Jing Kong to your room." Gu Jiao replied, "Okay." Xiao Lulang went back to the house and carried the sleeping little Jing Kong to Gu Jiao's east room. Gu Chongqing carried Gu Chunglin into the west room. Gu Jiao took out a kind of light blue paper that Gu Chongqing had never seen before from the small medicine box and spread it on the bed. "Okay, put him on the bed." Gu Chongqing put Gu Chunglin down gently and looked at Gu Jiao. "Can he be saved?" Gu Jiao took out disinfectant and disinfected her hands. "It's hard to say. Light the lamp." Gu Chongqing hurried to light the oil lamp on the table. Xiao Lulang found the rest of the oil lamps in the house and lit them one by one. Gu Jiao said to Xiao Lulang, "You go to sleep first." Then she said to Gu Chongqing, "Go and boil some water." "Okay." Gu Chongqing agreed. The two of them went out. Gu Jiao put on a pair of gloves and began to check Gu Qinglin's injury. She cut open Gu Qinglin's shirt with a pair of scissors. The doctor in the house gave him some hemostatic powder, but the effect was minimal. Blood kept oozing out. Fortunately, the doctor did not pull out the knife impulsively. In this situation, if he pulled out the knife, he would definitely die from excessive blood loss. Without an X-ray, Gu Jiao could only judge the position of the knife based on the length and angle of the knife. She did not know if Gu Chunlin was lucky. The knife was less than half an inch away from his heart. Gu Jiao put him on an intravenous drip and gave him a shot of epinephrine. Then she took the test paper and went out. She said to Gu Chongqing and Xiao Lulang, who did not listen to her and went back to sleep, "He needs a blood transfusion. I'll collect your blood types." The two of them did not understand what blood types were. However, there were blood transfusion treatments in the military camp. Most of them used internal force to push blood into the other party's body. However, the mortality rate of this treatment was very high. Gu Jiao collected the blood from the 4 people's fingers. The result was that none of them matched. The old lady and Gu Yen were not considered. They did not meet the requirements to donate blood. Gu Chongqing asked, "We are brothers. Can't my blood be used?" Gu Jiao said, "This is very complicated. Even if Gu Yen and I are fraternal twins, our blood types may not match." Gu Chongqing was confused. Dripping blood to identify relatives meant that they were blood relatives. Didn't this mean that their blood could match? Patients who lost too much blood in the military camp were treated with the blood of their loved ones. The casualty rate was much lower than that of outsiders. This was because relatives were affected by genetic factors. The probability of having the same blood type was higher, but it was not absolute. Lu Quan. Gu Jiao thought of the old chancellor's steward. He was in the prime of his life and could donate blood. Gu Chongqing planned to go next door to find Lu Quan. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Lu Quan standing at the door with a cold face. Gu Chongqing was slightly stunned. "Why are you here?" Gu Chengfeng's gaze was cold. "I should be the one asking Big Brother. Why are you here? Didn't Big Brother say that he was going to bring Third Brother to find a doctor? Is it here? What doctor is there here? A little medicine boy from Miracle Hand Hall?" Gu Chongqing faintly felt that this younger brother was not the same as usual. His aura was a little dangerous. However, his mind was filled with Gu Chenglin's injury. He didn't think too much about it. He said, "I don't have time to explain to you. Get out of my way." Gu Chengfeng said, "I won't. Big Brother, you betrayed us long ago." Gu Chongqing took a deep breath. "Yao Shi is innocent. Mother's death has nothing to do with Yao Shi." Gu Chengfeng clenched his fists, so Big Brother accepted them. Even if Mother wasn't killed by Yao Shi, Third Brother was seriously injured by that girl. How much do you hate Third Brother? Doesn't Big Brother know? I think Big Brother has been bewitched by that girl. You only remember that you have a younger sister and don't remember that you have 2 younger brothers. Gu Chongqing said coldly, "Shut up. You said before that you only have 2 younger brothers and no third brother. You don't have a younger sister. You've forgotten these words." Gu Chengfeng's eyes were like torches. "Fine. Then let me ask you. Did she say that she could definitely cure Third Brother? She didn't, right? Then if she purposely killed Third Brother, we can just say that Third Brother's injury was too serious. There was nothing we could do to save him." Gu Chongqing's patience had reached its limit. "She's not as bad as you say. Third Brother's life is at stake. If you don't get out of my way, don't blame me for being impolite." Gu Chengfeng threw caution to the wind. "Fine. Then Big Brother will give it a try. Big Brother, if you don't protect Third Brother, then I'll protect Third Brother. Today, I definitely won't let anyone hurt." Before he finished speaking, a small figure suddenly appeared behind him and stabbed him with a needle. "You?" Gu Chengfeng turned his head. His body tilted and he fainted. Gu Chongqing caught him. Gu Jiao put away the needle and took some of Gu Chengfeng's blood. Gu Chongqing was shocked. "Weren't you in the house? How did you?" Gu Jiao spread her hands. "Oh, I went in through the back door." She went to the old chancellor's house from the back door and came out from the old chancellor's house. She sneaked an attack on Gu Chengfeng. Gu Chongqing looked at the unconscious Gu Chengfeng. It's okay. It's just a little sedative. Gu Jiao said and looked at the test paper in her hand. Oh, we don't need to find Lu Quan. Gu Chengfeng's blood type matched Gu Qinglin's. Gu Chongqing carried him in. Xiao Lulang brought a set of dry clothes over. Gu Qinglin's clothes were soaked in blood and couldn't be worn anymore. Gu Chongqing left in a hurry and didn't think so thoroughly. He looked at Xiao Lulang seriously and didn't have the unfamiliarity and vigilance from the first time they met. Thank you. Gu Jiao said, you can all go out. The operation process was too bloody and violent. She didn't want to leave any psychological trauma for the patient's family and her own family. The two went to the central room. When Gu Jiao drew blood for Gu Chengfeng, Gu Chengfeng slowly woke up. He couldn't move because of the sedative. He looked at his and Gu Qinglin's arms that were pricked with strange things, as if his blood flowed into his brother's body. Gu Jiao didn't care whether this guy would have psychological trauma or not. Gu Jiao raised the scalpel and said lightly, I'm going to start the operation. Gu Chengfeng snorted. In the next second, Gu Jiao pulled out the dagger. Blood splattered 3 feet. Gu Chengfeng. Digression. Yesterday's exciting chapter, I forgot to ask for votes. Is there any more today? Asking for votes, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1139822345. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 190. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are here. The wound was deep and wide, and the dagger itself was not clean. Gu Jiao wanted to clean the wound, and the flesh was torn open. That scene was unforgettable. Because the wound was too close to the heart, Gu Chengfeng felt that he saw his brother's beating organ. He didn't know if it was his illusion or not. Gu Chengfeng's hands and feet were cold. After that, Gu Jiao began to sew the wound needle by needle. Gu Chengfeng lay weakly on the rattan chair, like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He wanted to close his eyes, but he felt that it was too cowardly. He saw the flesh being torn by the needle and thread, and he heard a sticky and squishy sound. He felt terrible. Looking at Gu Jiao's calm face, those who didn't know would think that she was sewing clothes. When Gu Jiao finished the last stitch, Gu Chengfeng fainted. For a long time in the future, he could only be a vegetarian. Gu Jiao walked out of the house. It was already dawn. Xiao Lulang went to make breakfast for the family, and Gu Chongqing had been wandering around the central room. When he saw Gu Jiao, he looked nervous. How is it? Here you are. Gu Jiao wrapped the dagger that she took from Gu Chonglin in a cloth and handed it to Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing didn't want this dagger, but after all, it was the weapon that concubine Ling used to hurt Gu Chenglin, so he took it. Gu Jiao said, he's alive for now, but he's not out of danger yet. In the next 3 days, if he doesn't have any symptoms of infection or adverse reactions, and can wake up, then he's really fine. So the next 3 days were the most critical period. Gu Chongqing understood and said to Gu Jiao, then since it was so dangerous, naturally they couldn't send him back. The doctors in the house were not skilled enough, and the imperial doctors were not enough. The main thing was that Gu Chongqing had never seen those strange things that Gu Jiao used. He was afraid that the imperial doctors wouldn't understand. Gu Jiao thought for a moment and said, "Send him to the clinic. I'll be there during the day, and let Dr. Song be on night duty." Dr. Song was the disciple of the county's Huichun Hall, and he was trustworthy. Gu He knew how to use her medicine. Gu Chongqing said, "Okay, I'll listen to you." Gu Jiao went to the old chancellor's house next door to borrow a carriage. Gu Chongqing carefully carried Gu Changlin into the carriage. Gu Chengfeng woke up and weakly got into the carriage. Gu Jiao still had to tidy up the house and deal with the medical supplies, so she said to Gu Chongqing, "You go first, I'll be there in a while." Gu Chongqing nodded his head. "Okay." It wasn't far from Bishui Alley to the clinic on Xuanwu Street, but in order to not let the patient in the carriage be too bumpy, Lu Quan made the carriage go steadily and slowly. Inside the carriage, Gu Changlin was still unconscious due to the effects of the medicine. Gu Qingfeng's tranquilizer didn't have much effect left, but when he thought of the scene of Gu Jiao operating on Gu Changlin, he felt his arms and legs go soft and his scalp tingle. It wasn't that he had never seen a doctor treat people, but that girl was different from other doctors. What was different about her, Gu Chengfeng couldn't say for a while. Gu Qingfeng's gaze fell on Gu Qinglin's face. "Big brother, how is third brother?" Gu Chongqing said, "He hasn't passed the critical period yet." Gu Chengfeng snorted. "I knew it. How could she treat third brother so seriously? 3 days of critical period, any accident is possible." Gu Chongqing's gaze turned cold. "This is already the result of her efforts. If she didn't do her best, you would be looking at a corpse right now." Gu Chengfeng was at a loss for words. Gu Chongqing said sternly, "I don't want to hear these kinds of words in the future." Gu Chengfeng unwillingly turned his face away. The carriage went on for a while. The atmosphere inside the carriage was incomparably heavy. Gu Chengfeng opened his mouth again. "Big brother, have you never suspected her identity? How could a wild girl from the countryside have such ability? Big brother, don't you think she's very suspicious?" Gu Chongqing looked at Gu Chengfeng with a cold gaze. "She saved third brother, and also saved me." Gu Chengfeng was stunned. After Gu Chongqing sent Gu Changlin to the side room of the clinic, he had Gu Chengfeng take care of him while he himself returned to the Marquis's estate. Marquis Gu was about to die from anxiety. He was blocked in the estate by Gu Chongqing's hidden guards and couldn't take a single step out. The sky was already bright, but he didn't know what happened to Gu Changlin. That stinky brat's wings had hardened. He actually dared to disobey his father. Just as Marquis Gu was about to faint from anger, Gu Chongqing returned. Marquis Gu was so angry that he pointed at his nose and scolded, "Unfilial son! Unfilial thing! Where did you take your brother?" Gu Chongqing said, "He's at the clinic, his life has been saved for now." Saved. Marquis Gu couldn't believe it. The imperial physician had come in the middle of the night, and after hearing the location of the wound described by the estate physician, he had basically concluded that Gu Changlin had no way to live. Not to mention finding a physician from the capital, even if they called the divine physician from Chen country, it would be useless. Why, you're not lying to me, right?" Marquis Gu was so agitated that he stuttered, "Which clinic is your brother in?" "Miracle Hand Hall." Gu Chongqing said. "Miracle Hand Hall." Why did this name sound a little familiar? Whatever. Marquis Gu flicked his sleeve. "Huang Zheng. Prepare the horse. Go to Miracle Hand Hall." Gu Chongqing called out to him, "Father, is concubine Ling still in the Fu? Why do you still care about that woman?" Marquis Gu was angry at the mention of that woman. She had done so many evil things, dying 100 times was not too much. In the end, she was still a member of the Ling family. He had originally planned to let the Ling family know before dealing with her, but unexpectedly, she had injured Gu Changlin in such a short time. She knew that she had no way to live, so even if she died, she wanted to drag someone down with her. All these years, she had been doing her best to suppress her anger and dissatisfaction. She had suppressed it so well that no one had discovered it, and only at the last moment did she completely explode. This kind of person was simply too frightening. Marquis Gu said, "In a moment, when your grandmother wakes up, someone will naturally report to her what happened last night. You don't need to worry." The old madam could ignore whether concubine Ling had bullied Madame Yao and her stepson, and could also ignore her instigating the relationship between Madame Yao and her stepson. However, Gu Chunlin was the old madam's lifeblood. Concubine Ling stabbing him was practically cutting off any chance of survival. The old madam would not let her go. Gu Chongqing went to concubine Ling's courtyard. Concubine Ling had laughed crazily for half the night, and now she finally stopped. She sat on the bed and hugged a pillow as if she was hugging a child. She patted it lightly and hummed. Her room was a mess. There were bloodstains that belonged to Gu Chunlin on the ground. Gu Chongqing crossed the threshold with a cold expression. With his back to the light, his tall body cast a long shadow on the ground, which spread to concubine Ling's body. Concubine Ling raised her head in a daze. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were messy, and her eyes were dull. But soon she revealed a happy smile. "Ah, brother is here." Gu Chongqing coldly walked into the room and stopped 3 steps in front of her. Concubine Ling smiled and said to the baby in her arms, "Big brother is here, quickly call him big brother." Gu Chongqing said, "Don't pretend, I have something to ask you." The crazy smile on concubine Ling's face froze. The corners of her mouth relaxed little by little, and a trace of viciousness gradually condensed in her dull eyes. She mercilessly threw the baby in her arms to the ground and looked at Gu Chongqing. "Oh, what does the heir want to ask me?" Gu Chongqing's expression did not change at all. "Did you kill my mother?" Concubine Ling was stunned for a moment, then covered her face and laughed crazily. She laughed so hard that her whole body was trembling, and tears were flowing from her eyes. "Ha ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, ha ha ha." The entire courtyard was filled with her maniacal laughter. Even though it was broad daylight, it was still creepy to listen to. The maids in the courtyard were so scared that they hugged each other. Gu Chongqing looked at her expressionlessly and did not interrupt her. After she had laughed enough, she wiped the tears on her face, looked at the tears on her fingertips, and said, "I want to kill my sister. Does she still have a chance to live so long?" Gu Chongqing said lightly, "If it's not you, who is it?" Concubine Ling smiled and said, "Why don't you ask me if your mother died of illness?" "Did she?" Gu Chongqing asked. Concubine Ling smiled gently and looked into Gu Chongqing's eyes. "No, she didn't. She was killed by someone. As for who it was, you can guess it yourself." Gu Chongqing looked at her without blinking, as if to distinguish the truth in her words. "Do you suspect that I'm lying?" Concubine Ling sneered and said, "A person's words are good when he is about to die. I've admitted to all the other crimes, why not admit to this one?" Gu Chongqing said seriously, "The night before my mother's illness worsened, she only saw you and my grandmother. Are you implying that my grandmother is the murderer?" "Ha ha ha." Concubine Ling trembled with laughter again. "If you think so, it's okay." Gu Chongqing frowned. What did concubine Ling mean? Was she saying that the murderer was not her, nor his grandmother? But why did his mother's illness deteriorate after his grandmother and her came? La la la. Concubine Ling picked up the pillow she threw on the ground and held it in her arms again. "Do you want to know who killed your mother? Come here and I'll tell you." Gu Chongqing looked at her coldly. "What? Are you afraid of me?" Concubine Ling looked aggrieved. "You're not that fool Gu Changlin. How can I hurt you? Come closer and I'll tell you." Gu Chongqing was still unmoved. "Well, forget it. Since you came to see me off, I'll tell you who killed your mother. That person is..." Concubine Ling sneered and said a name. Gu Chongqing's body shook. "You're lying." Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Concubine Ling laughed crazily again. Gu Chongqing knew that he couldn't get anything else out of her. Perhaps this woman was really crazy. She didn't know what she said at all. He turned and left the room. When he crossed the threshold, he looked at Concubine Ling one last time, before you married into the manor, did you really want me to call you aunt? Concubine Ling's body stiffened. I want to eat that. The red fruit on the tree? Yes. Little Chongqing nodded. Call me aunt and I'll pick it for you. Little Chongqing thought about it and said in a childish voice, Aunt. Haha. The young girl tied the skirt around her waist. Ah, miss. What are you doing? You can't be like this. The servant girls were scared half to death. This was too improper. Move. The young girl climbed up the tree and picked a few red begonias for the 3-year-old little Chongqing. The young girl's eyes were pure and her smile was bright. This was her best years, her most beautiful appearance. Gu Chongqing left. Concubine Ling sat on the bed in a daze and hugged the pillow in her arms. Suddenly, she buried her face in the pillow and burst into tears. Little Jing Kong woke up and found himself lying on the bed in Jiaojiao. He scratched his little head in confusion. This was strange. Didn't he sleep in his west room with his bad brother-in-law? Why was he in Jiaojiao's room? Could it be that Jiaojiao missed him so much that he brought him here in the middle of the night? Little Jing Kong nodded solemnly. Yes, it must be so. Little Jing Kong lifted the quilt in a good mood and started a lively day. He found that his little clothes were neatly placed on the chair beside the bed. He tilted his head and picked up the little clothes, saying proudly, Jiaojiao is so considerate. Then, he frowned and said disdainfully, My bad brother-in-law isn't so considerate. Xiao Lulang had just opened the door when he heard the little guy complaining about him. He narrowed his eyes and said, What did I do? I brought the clothes here, okay? Humph. Little Jing Kong turned his face away and continued to put on his little clothes after a while. He shook his head and showed off, I slept with Jiaojiao last night. Xiao Lulang, ha ha ha, you think too much. Jiaojiao didn't sleep at all. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964268286/113979064. HTML Genius, remember the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.